Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching what if Fem-Naruto was abandoned by her family and trained by Sasori. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Not wasting no more time. Let's start the story.
Sensei the puppet master Sasori was one of the greatest puppet masters the world had ever seen, and Naruko ran up to him and looked down on him. With silent tears streaming down her cheeks, she gazed down at him. Aside from the old man of Konoha, the third Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, who viewed her as a demon due to the nine-tailed fox's attack on them, Sasori was among the first people in her life to ever show concern for her. Because Orochimaru had gone insane with power and wanted to learn every jutsu in the world, and because she hated her father for obtaining the position of Hokage, the village leader that he could not, Sasori was now in her arms, dying of wounds to his human heart from the snake Sanin Orochimaru, who was out to kill his and her old village of Konoha. However, she was despised by the village she was sworn to defend and had been abandoned by both her mother and sister. Sasori and the elderly man, along with a few others, helped her escape the village to save her life, and she was now easily a Junin-level shinobi. "I'm dying, my apprentice. You have surpassed my every expectation as my student, and as one I see as a daughter Naruko," he said, gazing up into her blue eyes. With a sorrowful grin, she said, "Yes, sensei. Don't cry. Death comes to us all, my little one. Take my puppets and journals, take everything you can, Naruko. And be free, my daughter," he stated to her. "I will." He concluded his words to her as the life he had in his eyes faded and he passed away in her arms. "Also, Naruko. You have to stop them. Stop the Akatsuki. And especially stop Orochimaru. You can do this, Naruko. Please kill him before more innocent people died at his hands. And take good care of yourself, my daughter, and be free. Be free." When he refused to move for her, she looked down on him and began shoving him around in an attempt to get him to wake up. But he was unable to say, "Come back. Please, see, come back." She screamed in agony like no other at this moment, and she did it for everyone on the planet to hear. Orochimaru's day was not going well at all, and he was not at all pleased about it either. The first two cages of the hidden village of Konoha, Sasori's two best test subjects, had been killed. He had lost them now, but at least Sasori was no longer alive. He could also permanently destroy his old home and sensei, even though he was unable to use the first two cages as test subjects. At that moment, he heard a scream a Euro. It was Sasori's apprentices. Orochimaru experienced genuine fear for the first time in his life, and a very human chill runs up a man's spine who imagines himself a god or immortal. One day, his soul would be the death god's, and one day she would come from him, according to the chill of death himself. He was most afraid of that day. He was powerless to prevent it. Death cannot be cheated, and the Sanin would have to learn that lesson the hard way. For the first time in years, Kushina Uzumaki and her daughter were visiting their hometown of Konoha. She was aware that there were plenty of things to do there. She had a lot to do and hoped the old man would let her do this, so much. Naruko was not enjoying his day in the slightest. She was initially on a mission for Mei to return Haku and Zabuza to Water Country's hidden mist village on her behalf. "You owe me big time for this one, my Mei. First I have to go all over hell and back to find them. But then I find out that you two are working for this guy Gato, who I'm going to have to kill now. Nice going, guys," she was thinking to herself. She heard a scream and rushed to investigate, only to discover two men assaulting a woman and her son. It had been one of those days, okay. Now that she was furious and moved by the fire in her heart in a way that no one else could, Naruko suddenly struck them down as if it were nothing. On both of her wrists, the woman T could just make out two blades retracting. "Are you two all right?" she asked, turning to face the woman. "Yes, thank you, Ms. Naruko. My name is Naruko, and you are?" Naruko noticed that she had a very concerned expression on her face after she said, "I'm Tsunami and this is my son Inari. Thank you for saving us from them." "What is it?" "My father is in danger. I just know Gato has made his move. He's going to kill them all, and those kids from the Leaf Village," she said, gazing up into Naruko's eyes. "Kids?" was the last thing she wanted to hear. She seems to be implying that Wave Country is home to a genin squad, but the old man would never send children on a mission of this caliber. Unless... "Is it a genin ninja squad protecting your father by any chance?" She responded, "At first it was, but then they sent another team as backup to help us with Gato and to complete the bridge. But Gato's got his own ninja and a very big army of rogue samurai in his employment." She thought to herself, "Just great, and I just bet that one of them is here too. Just smile a lot and you'll be done with this mission." "All right, where are they now and where is this bridge that your father is building?" Naruko asked them. "They are all at the bridge now protecting my father. It's not far from here, you'll be able to see it." "All right, First to get the rest of the villagers. It's time to put it to this man, and have them come to the bridge. Inari questioned her, "What are you going to do, Naruko?" She looked at him and said, "It's time to give you back your country. I'm going to kill him and save those ninja. Don't worry about me, kid, I've taken on armies better than this man before. He's nothing compared to them, trust me on this one." Gato was going to die today, either at her hands or at someone else's, and Inari could see it in her eyes. Kakashi saw the girl Haku block his attack to save her master just as he was about to kill Zabuza. "No," he said. "In order to save her, I can't stop my jutsu in time." However, he sensed that someone was holding his hand before he could strike her with his jutsu. He was taken aback when he turned to see who this person was. "No way," he exclaimed, his eyes as wide as possible. "It's not often that a S-class ninja will simply hold your hand and stop your attack." He had heard of this shinobi before, she was called the Vixen. However, he never imagined seeing or meeting her. He only needed to ask himself why she was Haria Yuro. Was she there to aid or to fight them? This was a good question to ask at this point. Kakashi could see that she was wearing a mask, a black battle cloak, and what appeared to be a straw hat, but her appearance was as mysterious as the stories surrounding her. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, but that was all he could see. "Would you, please, not do that again?" "Okay," she said, now staring into his eyes. Kakashi simply gave her a nod. The bingo book was Kurenai's only source of information about this girl, and she was shocked to see the Vixen here in Wave Country of all places. She was here to assist Zabuza and his student, not them, if appearances were to be believed. Kurenai's team and Kakashi's two female students had to protect Tazuna, the client, so she was unable to go and assist Kakashi at this time without leaving the client unprotected. Karen Uzumaki, a redhead with green eyes and the daughter of his sensei's wife Kashina Uzumaki, was one of the girls from Kakashi's team. Karen was a very unhappy girl because she was unable to comprehend what was happening to them on this mission. She thought it had been a complete failure, primarily because her teammates Sakura and Sasuke had been a pain in her ass the entire time. This new ninja, who was no older than her, was now putting her sensei in danger. "Who the hell is she, sensei?" she asked. "I only know of her from the bingo book, Karen. She's known in there as the Vixen. Other than that we know nothing about her, not her name, not her home village. She's a ghost," she replied. "Now, are you to do with all this shit, or am I going to have to kick your asses all over this bridge? Because the last time I checked we have Gato and his rogue samurai army coming to kill us all. Right here right now," Naruko said, releasing Kakashi's hand and approaching Zabuza and Haku. He questioned her, "What are you doing here, V? May, she won the war Big Blade. And that means you two are out of the Water Country's bingo books." As he said, "We're out of the Mist bingo book, both of us, V." Zabuza and Haku exchanged glances. "Yes. Now can we go? Like I said, big army coming here to kill us, remember?" At this moment, the fog lifted, revealing Gato and his samurai army standing at the end of the bridge. He simply glanced at them and said, "Look at you, Zabuza, you're nothing but a baby demon who couldn't do his job. Well, is this a good thing for me? As I had no intention of paying you too. Now on to other business. Whoever brings me that girl dead or alive, I will pay you triple for it." Haku and Naruko were like daughters to Zabuza, who now had a furious expression on his face. After turning to face Kakashi, he declared, "Kakashi, we are no longer enemies." "I understand, Zabuza." When Karen heard her sensei say, "What are you talking about, sensei? He's been training to kill us for a week now. They're the enemy." Karen was shocked. "Your enemy one day, Karen, can be your friend the next. Don't forget it," he stated to her. By this point, Naruko had removed her battle cloak and straw hat, put on a mask, and had what appeared to be seals all over her body. Following that, she told them, "Let's go do this, you guys. Let's see just how many of them we can kill." Then, from one of her body seals, Naruko withdrew one of her blades. Masamune was the name of the sword, which was larger than she was. But when it came to killing, she was an expert with this blade. She was about to paint one of her masterpieces, and her current work was about death. Haku, Zabuza, and she dashed directly into the center of the samurai army, which was now annihilating Gato's men one by one. A perfect circle is playing the Outsider Apocalypse mix in the background during this battle. Naruko was methodical. Every motion she made with her blade resembled a lethal dance. She outmatched the majority of these renegade samurai, but one of them entered like a savage. This man was no more in control than some of them. He had no chance when she stepped aside and sliced at his waist. After that, she moved her blade forward, impaling two men simultaneously, and then she moved her left hand out, slitting another man's throat with a simple wrist movement. She then moved her blade up and down, cutting two of them with a single shot. The concealed blade, a present from some of her assassin masters, had performed admirably. At last, though, one of them appears to possess some talent. Many of her blows were deflected by him, and he had gotten his blade so close to her face that he sliced her mask. Even though she was angry now, she kept it in check and refused to give them another chance. One of her hits connects again. She managed to raise her left hand while blocking and drive the concealed blade into the man's heart. Her mask suddenly fell off, but she persisted despite the fact that her face was now visible to everyone. She was aware that she needed to maintain her attention on the task at hand. These men had committed serious crimes against the island's defenseless citizens, and they had to die. She was responsible for making them pay for it. The first thing Karen said was, "Naruko? You are the vixen." Kakashi and Karen were shocked to see her here of all places. Gato had just witnessed 3 individuals destroy an entire army, and he was now terrified for his life. There were just 2 of his men left to defend their boss. Naruko had already resealed her sword by this point, and she released the blades with lightning, fast reflexes, and they struck their targets, directly in front of them. In an attempt to repay them, Gato was now begging for their forgiveness, saying, "Please don't kill me. I can pay you whatever you want, just please don't kill me." "How many people pleaded you for mercy? Mercy that never came. How many?" asked Naruko after glancing at him. The so-called crime lord of Wave Country screamed in horror as his head escaped his body as Zabuza then lifted his blade and swung it at Gato's head. The residents of Wave witnessed it all. The villain of their nation had been vanquished by what some would refer to as murderers, demons, and monsters. In actuality, they were merely carrying out their assigned duties, which included eliminating a tyrant permanently. For the first time in a long time, Naruko felt content. This mission had turned out to be less difficult than expected. Naruko Uzumaki, however, reality quickly returned, and she realized her mask was gone. "Shit," she exclaimed. At this point, the music stops playing. As she had anticipated, 2 of them were people she would never again see, so she turned around and stared directly into their faces. Now that Kakashi could clearly see her face, with the 3 whisper-like marks on her cheeks, she was okay. "Naruko, by order of your mother you are to return to the Hidden Leaf Village. If you do not comply I will bring you back by force. And remember I'm not alone." Her subsequent statement to them, "No, I don't trust any of you at all. After all I remember you 3 trying to kill me. So you will have a fight to bring me back, and it's not happening," chilled Kakashi and Karen to their core. It was time to take her home because Kakashi and Karen both attacked at this precise moment, in one way or another. Kiba and Sasuke had just woken up from their altercation with Haku. The girl had proven to be more resilient than they had anticipated. They had both awoken in time to witness the battle between the 2 mist ninja, Goto's renegade army of samurai, and another individual who couldn't have been much older than them. Sasuke had his Sharingan active so he could learn all of their jutsu from this battle, and Hinata Hyuga was now tending to both of them. He could see that it was not working at all, though, and he was unable to imitate the new strange girl nin jutsu. He watched in envy as she defeated these men, thinking, "This power should be mine, with that I could kill him once and for all." When the battle was over, Sasuke and Kiba were both prepared to fight again if necessary, and he had a chance to see the strange girl's face. She was not much older than they were, and she had medium-length blonde hair with a single ponytail hanging from the back of her head. She also had 3 whisker-like marks on her cheeks. When his sensei and teammate Karen ran at her, he saw her do a backflip over them and land prepared for battle. "I see you brought some friends?" the girl asked after turning to face them. "My Genin squad, you have to come back with us. You can't win this war, Naruko." "You betting on that, because you should have brought more friends to take me down, because I'm not going back there anytime soon." At this moment, she placed her hands in what appeared to be a nin jutsu sign, and she grinned at them as her body radiated symbols that Kakashi instantly recognized. "No, no, no, she's got gravity seals on her. Sasuke. Kiba, take her down now. Karen with me now, we have to stop her." What was happening astounded Kurenai, who thought, "It just can't be. It simply cannot be Kushina's missing daughter, can it? You 3, stay with the client, that's an order. They can handle this, they have to," Shino and Hinata demanded of their sensei. In this squad formation, Kiba and his nin.dog partner Akamaru attacked her first. He punched her left wall, and Akamaru entered from the right. After swiftly dodging both of them, she gave Kiba a flying roundhouse kick that sent him flying across the bridge in a single blow. When she hit the ground, she gave the puppy an uppercut, and he struck the bridge with such force that he was knocked out cold. She was merely a blur to Kakashi and Karen, and even Sasuke was struggling to keep up with her despite his Sharingan being active. Sasuke was able to fight her for a lot longer than Kiba did because of his Sharingan. In contrast to his student, who appeared to be aiming for a kill, Kakashi took advantage of the fact that Sasuke had drawn one of his combat knives and was now fighting her for what appeared to be the death in order to strike and knock her out. Sasuke was not eliminated from the fight, but she was able to hit him in the face just hard enough to put him on his back. She then dodged Kakashi just in time. If it had connected, she would have been on her ass and supporting their authority. Now that he was back on his feet, Sasuke was running at her like he had the devil on his tail. His knife movements had become more lethal, but he was lacking a lot of experience. After evading him once more and gaining some separation, she flicked her wrists to reveal both of her concealed blades, which were a present from her assassin sensei. Damn it, Sasuke. Now she's probably going to kill you. Now have to bring her back and save your life. Nice going, said Kakashi, worried about one of his star students after he saw the weapons emerge. It was now a race against time for Kakashi and Karen to prevent the last Uchiha from being killed by the Uzumaki clan's lost heir. Unexpectedly, she stabbed him in the shoulder with one of her blades and then used her other hand to cut his throat when Sasuke swung his knife to strike her throat. But as her fist struck him square in the face, she pulled the blade back into its holder on her arm before it could reach his throat. As he collapsed to the ground, wailing in agony from his wounds, she withdrew the blade from his shoulder. Kakashi could see that her intention was to disable him rather than kill him. Karen, who had been waiting for this kind of opportunity to come her way for years, was not going to let it pass her by, so she continued her attack while Kakashi paused to tend to his student. When fighting her sister, she was far more accurate with her attacks than Sasuke had been. The two danced their deadly arts until Naruto got lucky and fled. She grabbed her battle cloak and straw hat and ran for it, with Hake and Zabuza now running beside her. V, did you enjoy yourself? He questioned her. We need to return to the village because Mei wants to see you for something, so that wasn't my idea of fun, sensei. What am I unaware of? It hadn't been a good day for Kakashi at all. Kiba and his dog Akamaru were still unconscious, and Sasuke wasn't in the right frame of mind to fight anyone right now. At this moment, Kakashi felt as though someone was watching him. He looked up to see Kurenai looking directly into his soul. Not good. Kakashi, what the devil was that? Back there, she saved our ass. For what purpose, may I ask, and just so you two can go off and attack her? She is essential to the village's defense, as you are aware, just as I am. Additionally, her mother instructed me to bring her back if I had the chance, he told her. And do you honestly believe that she will now return on her own initiative? Kurenai, it makes no difference, she must return somehow, and we are both aware of that. All right, I will comply, however, I do have a question. All right, what is it? He asked, nodding in agreement. Like why she claims that the three of you are attempting to murder her. Thanks to the resistance, the Hidden Mist village was transformed from a war-torn area into one of peace and hope. Our heroes were now located in the village's cage tower, and Zabuza and Haku were astounded to see the village in this state. They were being approached by numerous ninja and civilians who wanted their autographs. Where are the rock stars, or what? Haku uttered those words. As they got closer to the Mizukage's office door, she told them, in a way we are. After all, Zabuza here was one of the first to fight back after all, and here we are. Naruto approached the secretary and inquired, is Mei present? Yes, she is, go right in. Mei looked up from the evil known as paperwork, and the three of them entered her office. What transpired out there, Naruto? I see the mission was successful. Well, I had a run.in with my old village, and Goto is dead for one. Mei, two of them included. Mei remembered meeting Sasori and Naruto at the start of the Water Country's civil war, but the smile that had been on her face was gone now. 6 years had passed since then, and Naruto had established herself as one of the world's top ninjas for the resistance, earning her a nickname that they now simply called the Vixen, or simply V. Rewind after his attempt to assassinate the Mizukage failed. Zabuza was left with no choice but to face the impending civil war and think about what to do with his apprentice Haku and her training. The fact that his best friend Mei, who is also a bloodline user, was staring at him with one of those, "What are you doing? If they find me, you know I can't stay. I've got to leave. They find all of you. I must do this," he told her. "All right, Zabuza will play way for the time being, but I'm going to start fighting here," she said, turning her head to face him after walking to the end of the room with her arms folded. "You might be able to get his assistance from outside this village if we win." "It sounds like a plan to me," he said, grinning at her. "You take care of the monster. He used to be a good man to us. I'll start looking for the outside killers." A rather unusual scene caught their attention as they were walking down the street. A man hunched over, wearing a straw hat and a battle cloak with red clouds on it, was approached by a young girl who was no older than his apprentice Haku. "Hello, this is my apprentice Naruko Uzumaki," he said, introducing himself as Sasori of the Red Sand. "I understand that you require assistance with this resistance." Mei and Zabuza were taken aback by the case, the ninja who offered to assist them, and the fact that the criminal was an S-Class 1. "We are fully aware of you, so why would you assist us, killer?" Mei told him, prepared to fight at any time. "We don't mean to hurt you. I'm a member of a unique ninja team that was dispatched to monitor the Akatsuki, a criminal organization that resembles me. The group I'm a part of was dispatched to infiltrate this organization. Are you aware of their existence?" To this, they both nodded no. For starters, they're there to seize the tailed beast's vessels, such as your Mizukage. And behind me, my apprentice. I can even tell you who is to blame for this insanity in your nation, so I will not let it happen. Mei was immediately drawn to this, asking, "Who is this possible for all this? Who would want to murder so many innocent people in this nation?" "We don't know his given name right now, but we do know his clan one. And it is Uchiha. And a very old one, too, who ought to be deceased." Kisame gave us confirmation. To him, your Mizukage is currently nothing more than a puppet. Kisame. He is Mist Village's insider. Who would have guessed? Zabuza asked himself. "I need your help to train my apprentice," Sasori said, looking directly into Mei's eyes. "We all know what's going to happen in this war, so I'm sure she can help. Show her how to wield a blade. You all are capable of doing this, but I am not." "All right, this works for me," Mei said, nodding in agreement. "Is this Naruko okay with you?" "It works for me. How long are you going to be away this time, sensei?" "Not for very long, little one. When I return, I'll help both them and you out in your training," Sasori said, looking directly into her eyes. "You're doing well now." "Yes, sensei." Even though he detested the Akatsuki for their actions toward the world, he nodded to her and then left to return to the Forest of Water Country, hoping that one day his own work would finally bring them down. "So which one do you have in you?" Mei asked, turning to face Naruko. "Mr. I am 9, the 9-tailed fox. Where do I begin my training, then?" She cracked a grin. "Go right over to that man right over there and he'll help you with your training, Naruko." "Thank you, Ms. Mei. You know, if she fights for us she can use her real name. It would just bring her old home village here looking for it," Zabuza said as she ran to one of her new teachers. "Do you know with whom they will side?" "What if she had a new name?" Mei asked, worried about her new friend. What if it was a title that perfectly suited her, one that her adversaries might start to fear, and simultaneously offer hope to her allies and friends? He asked, "What you got in mind, old friend? She's got Fox, right?" "Yes. So what about the Vixen?" The end of the flashback. Even though Mei was upset to hear this, she was able to handle it. "Naruko, we all knew this wouldn't last forever. And there's more bad news, I'm afraid." "You mean the kind? Orochimaru and his new village are involved. He has injured the cage of the Sand Village and plans to attack the Hidden Leaf Village. Additionally, he wants to acquire the last Uchiha and her sister as potential new bodies." The snake and her family were the two things that could make Naruko lose her temper, but in combat she learned to control. It keeps you alive. This was one of Sasori and Zabuza's first lessons to her. When she was at peace like this, it was difficult to control her anger at times. "Additionally, I am unable to go get them. What a bitch's son." "Perhaps not." Mei uttered those words. "My old friend, what do you have in mind?" she inquired. "The world needs to know about the Mist Village once more. Additionally, the next Chunin X and Naruko will be held in Konoha. If you choose to go as a Mist Ninja, until it's over, they can't do anything to you. Additionally, we are aware that Orochimaru will attack the village during the exam finals. I'm going to need a team to enter the exams," Naruko said with a smile. "And who knows, maybe this will turn me into a Chunin too." "Haku and Naruko are on your squad," Mei said, turning to Zabuza. "Additionally, I believe I have your team's third member. Please send them in," she said, pushing the intercom on her desk. "Yes, sir." A young man carrying a pair of swords entered at this moment, accompanied by a group of puppets. As she picked up one of the puppets, Naruko smiled and said, "It's nice to see you all again, Shojiru. How are you doing? You looked after my young pals, correct?" Shojiru nodded quickly at this point because he didn't want to witness either Mei or Naruko using their virtuous feminine abilities on him. The puppet she was holding was named Blade, and he wore a black trench coat and a black hat. He had a hook for one hand and a switchblade for the other. He belonged to a group of living puppets made by a renowned puppet master, Sasori and Naruto were now the custodians of his secrets, and the puppets were Mei's and her close friends. "Looks like we're going to get even with the snake, you guys," she said, glancing down at them. "Now is the time to go all out. Mei, I need to open my store. I need to start working on my new puppets. And the battle in the leaf. I see you again, it seems, old man." After a week as the Junin senseis of teams 7 and 8 that went on the mission to Wave Country stood in front of him, it was impossible to blame the third Hokage of Konoha for his extreme unhappiness. Did he still find what he had read in their reports hard to believe? He tossed the reports onto his desk and began massaging his temples, sensing a severe headache approaching. "I'm too old for this shit," he said, even raising his head to gaze at them. Kurenai and Kakashi were both aware of his meaning and the direction this was taking, and they were in serious trouble. The first person to say, "Lord Hokage. When I tried to capture her, I was merely doing as the council and her mother had instructed." "To capture her?" he said. "Yes sir, all right, so, you were merely attempting to capture her? Therefore, why did 2 of your Janina Euro, children of clan heads, no less a Euro, and a third member of Kurenai's squad a Euro, also a clan head's child, I might add a Euro, engage in combat with a teenage girl in a high-level combat environment? I might add that you had just been in a life or death situation and felt the need to confront the one person who had saved your shit." Yes, he was furious. Kurenai was relieved that Kakashi, not her, was delivering the report to the Hokage. Since staying with the client was your job, Kurenai at least did that, was it not on this mission? "Yes, sir, in accordance with the mission directives, she kept Genin Hinata, Shino, and Sakura by the client's side for protection. However, I saw a new threat from the 2 mist ninjas at the time, as well as an opportunity to capture Naruto Uzumaki, who is currently still missing from the village for an unidentified reason." Now standing, the Hokage approached Kakashi and said, "You saw an opportunity. You engaged an enemy who was no longer a threat to you, which is a major rule of engagement violation. She might not return now because of you. Now leave. I want to be by myself right now, both of you." And Anbu approached the 2 Junin as they were leaving the Hokage's office and informed them that their students were qualified to take the Chunin exams. "These are the forms that your students can fill out and use to indicate whether they wish to take this year's exams. Oh, and one more thing. Additionally, according to the Hokage himself, you must leave Naruto Uzumaki alone if you want her to compete. Her sister and mother have also been notified." Neither of them was more shocked than Kakashi when they heard this. It seemed as though the Hokage knew she was returning to the village and did not want to frighten her away. What is it that the Hokage is aware of that we are not? There was a simple dedication and a picture of a younger Naruto and Sasori eating some ramen during a festival in a small village called Mummer's Grove. Naruto stood in solemn contemplation at the gravestone of her sensei and adopted father, Sasori of the Red Sand. The gravestone was covered in numerous intricate seals that looked out over a stunning ocean cliff, each of which served to protect the gravesite and preserve her master's final resting place. Here lies Sasori of the Red Sand of the village, hidden in the same of Wind Country, a loving grandson, a powerful warrior, a devout ninja, and a sensitive sensei and father, may he rest in peace, read the dedication. With her eyes closed, Naruto allowed her memories to flash before her, including happier moments spent at Miller's Grove. A.B. Lorena McKennett's remix of The Mummer's Dance begins to play. You can view the video and listen to the song on YouTube. October 10th had been her birthday and a day off from her many sensei's constant training, but today was much more special to her because she would finally see some old friends, including the Hokage of Konoha, who was in the village on a well-earned vacation with his son and grandson Konohamaru. Tucci, the owner of Ichiraku Ramen Bar, was also brought in to participate in a cooking competition, but he was also one of the few people who knew Naruto would also be present and had special plans for her 9th birthday. She had one of the happiest moments of her life when Sasori, the Hokage, Tucci, and surprisingly Jiraiya threw her a surprise party during the Mummers Play Festival. She ate candy and ramen and danced to the song, The Mummers Dance, as a woman with golden blonde hair. The old man Hokage simply took a picture of her wearing sister while he sat with him holding her. This would be the image used on his gravestone after Orochimaru had killed him. As the night wore on, she sat with her sensei and savored the last of the ramen that Tucci had prepared for her. A.N. At this point, the song ends. She sighed as she gazed at the straw hat in her hand. Sayuro. The same one in the picture. The same one that had once been her master Sayuro. As the final image played in her head and she opened her eyes to see the world returning to the present. She essentially had the same appearance, with the exception that her mask was currently sealed up and that a gold and red 9-tailed fox was now on the back of her black battle cloak. with the fox symbol located just beneath the fox. They all understood how important this was to her, so she fought back the tears, put the straw hat back on her head, and approached her team. Only Zabuza and Haku, who had witnessed Sasori's funeral on the edge of the fire and water country with a view of the blue Oceania Euro, a location her sensei had grown to adore. Sasori's grandmother Chiyo, who had confronted the young girl in her hour of need and assisted her in continuing her training in the arts of swordsmanship, as well as Jiraiya, had also been present to offer him a final resting place. In order to advance her training, she also trained with the Brotherhood of Assassins and 2 strong ninja clans. Because of her elemental abilities, she was able to perform basic ice jutsu and had a high level of proficiency in water jutsu, with wind and water being her strongest and earth being her weakest. She approached them and declared, "I'm prepared. Thank you, sensei, but it's time to move on. Blade, hurry up and let's go." Only Pinhead and Jester were out walking with the team from Mist Village, while the others were sealed in one of her many scrolls, and the little black-coated puppet leapt up and sat on her shoulder, watching for any trouble that might try to pose a threat to his master and friend. "So, do you know what happened to them?" Shojiru asked as he approached Haku and Pinhead. Sasori served as Will's sensei and, in a sense, father. She witnessed everything, and she knows who killed him nearly in front of her. And it was? Orohimaru. Sanin the snake. When she locates him, she intends to murder him. Kill him slowly and painfully. She will be the vengeful spirit. I will not stop the Grim Reaper's angel of death in the slightest. Her sensei, whom I knew, was a good man or puppet. But even though he had to be a part of that organization to do it, he did the right thing. She addressed him. A young man named Konohamaru and his friends were going to have a very interesting day because the village of Konoha was receiving a lot of visitors on this particular day. He first went up to Team 7 to see what they were doing today, and he had to confess that he didn't like any of them at all. Not the kids or their sensei. Kakashi was a hypocrite on a whole new level, saying one thing and doing another. He only ever trained the Uchiha or Karen, and he only trained Sakura when it was absolutely necessary because she lacked some of the fundamental training that a new genin fresh out of the academy is supposed to receive. The young genin of Team 7 were no exception. To begin with, Sakura was an epic fangirl who would stop at nothing to further her purported love for the Uchiha. Then there was the Uchiha himself, Sasuke, who was cold and haughty toward almost everyone, only showing affection for his mother, and who was preoccupied with re-establishing his clan. However, Karen Uzumaki was the worst to Konohamaru. She was partly to blame for his adopted big sister Naruko's departure from the village. He had a habit of phoning her boss and actually saw her because he knew that Kakashi, Karen, or her mother would attack Naruko at any time. His current issue was straightforward. After insulting Sakura's forehead, he was fleeing from the pink-haired Banshee, as Sakura had occasionally been referred to. Regretfully, he encountered some sand ninjas who were visiting for the exams. A tall man wearing a catsuit-like outfit, makeup, and a bundle on his back grabbed the young man by the long scarf he was wearing. Beside him, a young woman with blonde hair said, "Konkuro, it was only an accident, so let the child go." "No way, Tamari. This kid is going to learn his lesson from me," he said, turning to face his sister. He was supposed to be the only person in this village with the ability to use the puppet jutsu, but before he could do anything, the bundle on his back seemed to come to life and hurt him, which terrified him to no end. Tamari was shocked to see this, but she didn't know who was doing it, and the fact that many Leaf villagers were attending the performance didn't help either. Konkuro heard a young woman's voice speak at this precise moment, and he also noticed the villagers' reactions. They were afraid, but why? "What a simple puppet you're using. It looks like you made some changes to its design, but not enough, in my view. This is a very simple puppet for someone like me." "Good, but simple. Would you kindly explain to me why you are attempting to harm my young friend Sand Nin?" "Boss, it's good to see you. Why are you here? Did something happen?" Konohamaru said, leaping up out of the dirt and running toward the woman. By this point, Konkuro had turned around enough to see the young woman speaking, and what he saw further alarmed him. His puppet was only fastened to one of her fingers, and she had a single chakra string attached to it, something that not even he could do at the moment. Right now, Karen's eyes were wide open because her sister Naruko was in front of her and her team. Sakura, who remembered their first meeting on the bridge back in Wave Country, was having a heart attack at seeing the vixen again. Why in the world is she here? She attempted to murder my sensei and Sasuke. Yes, as well as you too, Karen. "I see you're doing well, Konohamaru," Naruko said, lowering his gaze to the young man. "I take it that you're not adding to your grandfather's gray hair?" "No way, boss. The paperwork has given Grandpa everything he can handle. Are you here for the test?" he will be delighted to see you again? Yes, I am. I wanted to be a chunin, and my old sensei here and in the Mist Village needed some assistance. She told him, I also wanted to see some old friends again, like you and your grandfather. You can come out now, Gaara, she said, turning her head toward a group of trees. It's been a while, old friend. As he watched his brother leap down from the top of a tree and approach them, he gave Konkuro one of those looks that made him even more terrified that his brother could kill at any time. Konkuro. Right now, you are a disgrace to our village. If I were you, I would stop. However, brother, I didn't do anything improperly. Yes, you did, but you can't do whatever you want here since it's not our house. Tamari, watch him more closely before he does something foolish that will kill us all. It's nice to see you again, old friend. Would you kindly let my brother go now, Naruko? He questioned her. She cut the chakra string from his puppet and approached Gaara with a smile on her face, much to everyone's surprise. Is Granny Chio also present? He gave her a yes nod. All right. We have a lot to talk about between you and me and my old grandmother, so I would like to see her again. It appears that in order to register for the Chunin exams, we must all go to the Hokage Tower. My old friend, would you mind taking a walk with me? She gave a bladed salute to Konohamaru and his friends and grinned as he walked beside her. Bladed was perched atop her straw hat, appearing ready to attack Team 7 at any moment. I wish I could. Gaara smiled and said, my vixen. She smiled sensuously at him and said, flattery. My old friend, I'll get you everywhere. Looks like our little brother has got himself his first crush, Tamari said with a smile on her face as she walked beside her brother. I also enjoy it. Tamari, as long as they don't murder us first, he addressed his sister. Karen of all people stopped Sasuke from pursuing her. All he had to do was ask, what are you doing? We have an opportunity to reunite with your sister. Why did you prevent me from taking her in Karen when she's in the village and we're ninja? Sasuke currently enjoys diplomatic immunity because she is taking my tests on behalf of a rival village and nation. Attacking her would only cause more issues for all of us, so we can't touch her until it's all over. Sensei will know what to do, so we must wait for him, and perhaps even my mom. This made Sasuke very unhappy, and he would even consider making her the mother of his children, perhaps even like her sister. With those two as my children's mothers, the Uchiha clan will be even more powerful than before. And I will finally kill my brother and replace my weak mother. The Hokage's secretary, who had not seen Naruko in a long time, was approached by the mist and sent teams. May I help you? Yes, please let me see the Hokage. We're here to take the Chunin exams, and we were informed that in order to register, we must see the big man. Is that okay? Big man. This coming from V, that's not good, she said, and the secretary instantly understood the code word. There are a group of Chunin hopefuls here as well as their senseis are here to register for the Chunin exams immediately with you personally of course, the secretary said into her intercom as she moved her hand to it. An elderly man's voice came over the intercom, saying, very well, send them in immediately. As the two groups entered the office, Vixen smiled and nodded to the secretary. Lady Chio and Baki, the sensei of the sand teams, were seated in chairs in front of the other Hokage's desk. As soon as Chio said, it's good to see you again, little one, Naruko rushed up to her old grandmother. I've heard about your activities in Wave Country. I assume that it was not your intention for those specific people to discover your identity? No, that wasn't part of the plan, Naruko said, shaking her head. I was surprised to learn that one of Goto's renegade samurai was superior. But I can tell you, Granny, that it won't get much better. It had been a long time since he had seen his surrogate granddaughter again, so the elderly man behind the desk got up and walked over to give her a long, overdue hug. He was a happy old man at the moment, but he knew that expression on her face wouldn't last for long. The old man simply had to ask, since Konohamaru, the Hokage's grandson, and his companions were standing next to Naruko. Why are all three of you here? Do I want to, anyway? Despite his nervousness, Konohamaru told his grandfather everything, and when he looked up, he saw that both Naruko and Gaara were nodding. About 4 days ago, the Mist Village Intelligence Agency was able to obtain sensitive information about the new Sound Village's plan to attack the Hidden Leaf Village sometime during the Chunin exams to take place in the village, Naruko said, taking off her straw hat as she approached him. Additionally, they learned that Orochimaru had killed the Kage of the Sand Village and was now posing as him to ensure their participation in the invasion. After taking a scroll from her battle cloak, Naruko gave Lady Chio a Sound Village document. The elderly woman opened the files and was astounded by what she discovered. After giving the Sand Team's sensei the files, she exclaimed, that snake. He will force us to get our hands dirty because he knew he couldn't kill you by himself. And judging by the expression on your face, little one, there's more. When she said, I'm afraid so Granny, he's perfected that jutsu old man, Natiko simply nodded. My sister is one of the 2 people he wants to target in this village. What about the other? My contact inside sound informed me that the last male Uchiha in this village is an elderly man. Additionally, Orohimaru has no suspicions at the moment, but that will change once the invasion begins. She will require assistance from SME. Additionally, before coming here, I might have encountered my sister's team. I'm too old for this shit, the Hokage said, beginning to rub the side of his head. Your mom is going to cause a lot of trouble now. You had better tell me everything, you know. Kakashi rushed up to Kushina and said, My lady, your daughter Naruko is in the village right now, after Team 7 had taken some time to arrive at Karen's house with their sensei in tow. However, I'm not sure how to go about getting your daughter back because she's on a missed team for the Chunin exams. When Kushina learned of this, she was both shocked and, on the one hand, extremely proud that her daughter had outwitted them. We are powerless to change her, Kakashi, because she is very similar to her father. We'll need to discuss this with the council to see if we can convince her. However, this will not be a simple task. We'll need to increase your training soon, Karen, so you can outperform her on the tests. I need to know everything about her now, Kakashi, because it might be our only chance to bring her home. We must be prepared for her using all of the jutsu and fighting techniques you have witnessed her employ. Regarding you, my daughter. Karen wanted to know what her mother had planned, and she had a feeling it would be good. I believe the time has come for you to master your father's finest jutsu. You need to learn jutsu, the flying thunder god. But she can't possibly learn that jutsu in a day, and tomorrow is exam day, my lady. Kakashi. All Karen and her sister need to do is make it to the final exam round, and Naruko will be back where she belongs. I have been teaching her the fundamentals for a while now. After a day, Team Mist was making their way to the Ninja Academy of the Hidden Leaf Village, where they were instructed to find a room bearing the number 309. Thus far, they had observed a group of genin serving as a ruse to disqualify the teams that were not prepared for the test. One of them was a girl wearing a Chinese style shirt and pants, 2 bonds on her head, and a large scroll on her back. The second team member Naruko saw was obviously a member of the prestigious and honorable Hyuga clan, and he had a look about him that suggested he wanted to kill someone. She would be watching him closely. The final team member was a young man wearing a green spandex outfit with orange leg warmers that she could tell contained a large number of training weights. His hair was cropped to resemble a helmet, and his eyebrows were enormous. On both hands were medical wraps, and he appeared to be an expert in hand combat. The team heard a very familiar voice calling out about the previous team's small deception as they made their way to the exam room on the 3rd floor. This made the exam a little more difficult for them. Great, it's them, said Haku, not pleased. Additionally, I believe they simply ruined the team's plan. After giving Haku a nod, Naruko froze in place and turned to hear what was happening on the academy's 2nd floor. She then grinned at what she heard. All Haku needed to know was, what's happening, V? The Uchiha just got his ass beat up by the kid in the green spandex just now, they're on their way up, let's go. Their sensei Zabuza was waiting for them when they arrived at the door with the number 309, saying, all right, you're all here. Now, like me, go in there and make the village proud, but use caution. They all nodded at him and entered the room, where Naruko could just make out Kakashi Hitaki, who was obviously waiting for his Genin team to arrive as well. He gave Naruko a worried look, as if he wanted to say something to her, but her icy expression prevented him from doing so. Whatever you are planning to copy, I would advise you against it, Zabuza said as he stopped walking past him. Don't think I don't know what you did to her because she will kill you. Because she wasn't the only one who told me about Hitaki. I hope your plan works, my lady, because if it doesn't we are going to have a hell of a lot of people to fight. And I don't think this is a fight we can win so easily, Kakashi said, now concerned not only for himself but also for his students. As Team Mist entered the room, they saw that many people were there to take the test. They saw the Sand team with Gaara and a team from Stone Village, which included one of Naruko's old friends. She smiled and approached them, and they were now conversing. She also caught a glimpse of the snake's spy Kabuto out of the corner of her eye. Naruko approached the stone ninjas, and Kuretsuchi was the first to notice her. Long time no see V. Why have you returned to this village? All right. If you understand me correctly, K. I have a certain serpent and some time to kill, she addressed her longtime Earth Country friend. A blonde girl with blue eyes, a long ponytail, and what appeared to be a purple battle outfit jumped onto the Uchiha just as Team 7 entered the room. She and the pink-haired girl were obviously fangirls, the scourge of all female ninjas. Almost all of the exam applicants were now staring down the teams, some with hatred, some with contentment, and some with no worries at all. The teams were obviously rookies, having probably only been out of the academy for 6 months or less, and they were making a lot of noise. "Would you guys keep it down? There are a lot of competitors this year." Kabuto approached them at this precise moment. They also don't appear to be very amiable. With his usual arrogant demeanor, Kiba simply had to know who this man was. "And who the hell are you? Where are my manners, I wonder?" He introduced himself to them as Kabuto and held what appeared to be cards in his hand. "How did you learn so much about the test, then?" Ino questioned him. "All right. I've taken the test 7 times now, you can see how difficult it is." "For the 7th time?" Kiba simply had to rub it in after saying that. "You must suck, man." Then Karen saw the cards he was holding and asked, "What are those cards for?" "Oh, these are just ninja info cards," Kabuto remarked, glancing down at them. "Over the years that I have taken the exams, I have gathered a great deal of information about nearly every competitor. In fact, I might be able to assist you if you're looking for information about someone." Sasuke and Karen both had an idea and requested information about specific individuals present in the room. "We need information on Rock Lee, Gaara of the Desert, and Naruko Uzumaki." "You know their names, that's no fun," Kabuto said after beginning to search through his cards until he located the ones he was seeking. "Okay, so let's see who we have first. Rock Lee from the Hidden Leaf Village has completed about 5B rank missions, 30D rank missions, and 20C rank missions. Tenten and Neji Hyuga are his teammates, and Maeda Guy is their sensei. Additionally, it states that he is an expert in hand combat but lacks any knowledge of genjutsu or ninjutsu." Most people were impressed by this information and thought he would be a difficult opponent. Kabuto then went on to make the following request. "Let's see here, Gaara of the Desert. His older sister Tamari and brother Konkuro are teammates, and he is the youngest son of Sand Village's Cage. Baki is his sensei, and he has finished 1B rank mission and 20C rank missions without even getting scratched. He still had one more to go, and last but not least is Naruko Uzumaki." At this point, everyone was both impressed and afraid. It states that she is the sister of Karen Uzumaki of Team 7 and the daughter of Kushina Uzumaki. Does this imply that it is unknown how many and what level of missions she has completed? There are 4 known A-rank missions, at least 10 known B-rank missions, and 28 C-rank missions that are unknown. Additionally, she has 2 known S-rank missions, is a Mist Civil War veteran ninja, and goes by the alias Vixen. Although she is said to have no known genjutsu skills, she appears to be able to prevent them from being used against her in battle. She is said to have received sword training from some of the 7 swordsmen of the Mist and has employed a number of advanced ninjutsu techniques in battle. Additionally, it states that she has been rumored to be at least a mid-to high level Junin ninja when fighting. Additionally, it states that she is taking the exam on behalf of the Mist Village. When they heard this, at least half of the applicants had terrified expressions on their faces and in their eyes, and some of them were running away. "It looks like we girls are going to be kicking some ass this year," Kuretsuchi said, beaming at them with one of her signature smiles. "Correct, Vixen?" Naruko responded, "You know it, Kay," with one of those two sweet smiles. "Don't you think the exam will be interesting?" "More than you know, Naruko. Check it out," Chojuru said, turning away from them at that moment. As some of the rookies helped him up, the exam proctors entered to begin the first test, and Team Mist, Sand, and Stone turned just in time to see the sound ninjas attacking Kabuto and saying something about not underestimating them in this exam. The head proctor was a scarred man who, simply by his appearance, shouted to be feared, but Naruko knew him well, having known him for a long time as one of her closest friends, and he was a good man. The third Hokage of Konoha entered the council chambers of the village. He could guess who had called the emergency meeting. Upon entering the chamber, he was immediately inundated with questions from both the shinobi and civilian council members. At this point, only the village elders appeared to be remaining silent. He didn't have to wait long to discover what was wrong. He knew now that something was wrong. Kushina Uzumaki approached him and said, "You could have told me where she was all along, old man. You've been hiding things from me and this council for a while." This time, the Hokage chose to act foolish and enrage her in the process, saying, "And Kushina, who would this be?" "You know damn well who I'm talking about, old man," she said, crossing her arms over her chest and approaching him with one of those "if only looks could kill" expressions. "You have no right to interfere with this since she is my daughter, and you've been aware of her location the entire time. There is nothing you can do to stop us from retrieving her after the exams are over." Since the Hokage was more skilled than she was at this game, he chose to share some information with her. Alright. You have a number of issues, Kushina, the first of which is that you have been out of this village for a number of years. Or did you overlook that? Since I didn't, she was left in my care or with whoever the hell I thought would be best to look after her. Even if it means she is no longer in this village. You must tell me about her because that was a long time ago, old man, and I am now a member of this council. I am fully entitled to reclaim my daughter. Kushina, it's been far too long. Additionally, she is currently involved in some extremely delicate village secrets. She works for me, so as long as I am the village's cage, you won't touch or bother her. You won't even come close to her. However, you must ask yourself one question. And an old man would be that. Is she interested in returning to you and spending time with you? Kushina, we both know what the three of you did that evening. He said to her, just loud enough for her to hear the final words, and don't think she has forgotten it either. But at this point, one of the elders made the decision to speak up. Yeah, Lord Hokage, you know it's more complicated than that. She said, remember that she is still considered a citizen of this village and this country, and he turned to face her. In addition, her military significance to this longtime village friend is a factor. That fact outweighs your authority on this issue and at this time. When Kushina heard this, she now had a shit-eating grin, but it disappeared quickly. However, concurrently, I also have to think about Naruko's welfare, and you Kushina Uzumaki aren't known for being nice to this kid. Even if we were able to get her back, I would not be able to recommend her return to your home because of this. Hearing this from someone who she believed would support her in this action left Kushina speechless, but this was not what she wanted to hear. Even if we could get her back, what the devil are you saying, and what did you mean by that? I'm referring to Kushina, and I know details about her time in this village with you that would chill a number of people here who are parents. Lord Hokage is aware of these things as well, and I don't think you've shown that you're capable of raising her appropriately at this point. In fact, she might already be too old for it. On the other hand, as you are undoubtedly already aware, we are unable to take any action against her until the Chunin exams are finished. Even so, I will have to try to convince her to remain in this village because I am the elder. I fervently hope she leaves this village before it's too late. Well, I will just have to make sure that she gets caught, and you can all see if she wants to come back to us, said one of the elders, who did not appear pleased to hear this either. If she doesn't, though, I'll take her inside, and in my opinion, the Hidden Leaf Village owns the young woman's entire body. I do agree with them on one point, though. You need to repent greatly. You are aware of it. We are not allowed to touch her until the exam is over, but the Hokage will speak privately with her about her situation in this village to decide whether or not it is best to keep her here. What do you think, Lord Hokage? All right, said Elder Danzo. Makoto Uchiha, the clan head, should also be there, in my opinion. He said, very well, unless something happens with the exam, we will continue this in the Hokage's office tomorrow morning, to which Danzo and the other elders nodded. Good day, and this emergency meeting is over. As everyone started to rise and leave the room, Kushina approached her longtime friend and inquired, what's up, Makoto? What do you know that I don't about my daughter? Unable to think of anything to say to her old friend, Makoto simply stopped. I apologize, Kushina, but I'm just unable to discuss certain things with you. No longer, and Naruko, your daughter, is among them. Even though many of the teams had already been eliminated from the exams due to cheating, Naruko felt that there were still too many of them for her taste. The fact that all three rookie teams were still in it, along with Kabuto's team and the Sound team, didn't help, but at least the Sand and Stone teams were still in it. Naturally, it was a bit of a shock to see your next proctor fly in through a window, especially since this person had a history with Naruko and the snake, and she was delighted to see her old friend Anko once more. I think you're slipping, Ibiki. There are way too many teams in here, Anko remarked after taking a close look at the space. I have a feeling this year's batch of applicants is just better than we thought is all, he concluded. Well, after I finish them, they will be cut in half. All right, children, the second exam section is about to begin. Get down to Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death as we like to call it here in Hidden Leaf Village. Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, was a sight to behold for Team Mist, who were genuinely impressed this time. Since there was no longer a training ground like this in the Hidden Mist Village at the time, they could tell it was ideal for the upcoming exam section. Naruko simply suspected that Orochimaru was already in the exams in some way, and she already had a potential suspect. A very eerie female grass country ninja who had displayed her bloodlust by performing one of the snake Sanin's tongue jutsus and having an offensive odor. In all the times Naruko had visited grass country, no ninja or person had ever smelled of snakes. Because the Earth Scroll on the team's exam scroll was held up by Haku, they needed a heaven scroll to pass this section of the test. All right, Folks, it appears that all we need to do is obtain a heaven scroll and arrive at the tower in 5 days. For us, it seems a bit too easy, she remarked. Haku, do you recall that grass kunoichi? I don't think it will be that simple. Shojiru uttered those words. You're not thinking, Haku, he has a point. Few people have that kind of scent on them like Anko, and that grass kunoichi did smell like snakes, Naruko told them. So what's the plan V? Shojiru asked, turning to face Naruko. The first step is straightforward. We obtain our scroll and proceed to the tower in the middle of the forest. Well, after that. Alright. That isn't a backup plan. Well, I'm not sure. Alright, I'm just making this up as I go. However, the snake will not think twice about stopping us and attempting to kill me once and for all if I know him as well as I believe I do. How about the civilian council and your mother? Shojiru inquired. She's probably tried something already, and the elders and the old man have stopped her for the time being, but after this mission is over. She stated, the elders will have to maintain the village's authority because of Mr. 9, and it's impossible to predict what she'll do. I understand. Shojiru stated, they believe they can take you back at the end of the exam and force you into service because you're a rogue ninja for hire by just about any village or country that can afford your price, and because you're still a citizen of this village and country. After Haku gave him a nod, the Forest of Death's gates opened for them as an alarm went off, signaling that it was time to discover their true potential and what lay ahead. You do realize that you're playing a very risky game here, old friend? Danzo candidly questioned the third Hokage, an old friend and co-worker. They were having a very private conversation in the Hokage's office, which was now empty except for them. Change always is. What will you do now that you are more aware than most of what transpired with Naruko that evening? Danzo, who had always known that someone from outside the village was partially to blame for the planned takeover of the village and its new rule by the traitorous Uchiha, who would stop at nothing to gain power, including the murder of their own friends and family, approached one of the office windows and gazed out onto the village of Konoha in solemn reflection on what he had just learned. Young children, women, and the elders who had resisted the traitors and survived made up the majority of the clan that remained. Itachi and his mother had spearheaded the effort to prevent a civil war from breaking out in the village as a result of these evil traitors who had allied themselves with one of the suspected secret members of the Akatsuki organization. Fortunately, Jiraiya and one of his contacts from the organization had been in the village when the rebellion occurred. That contact had been Sasori at the time. That night, they had ventured into the Uchiha district to try to find more survivors in order to ensure that all of the traitors had been dealt with. Itachi's mother Makoto and Sasori had both discovered the young girl who was on the verge of death and would later be known to everyone as the Vixen. Inoichi Yamanaka had been forced to report to the Hokage that he could not erase or suppress the memory without some sort of harm coming to the young girl after he had run one of his best mind scan jutsus to see what had happened to the young Naruko that very night, as well as to see if she was mentally okay and if her tenant would try anything like getting out. Instead, they had discovered the terrible truth behind her attack and the reason she had been left to die in the Uchiha district that night, and that her tenant wanted to kill not only the young girl's mother and sister but also one of the Anbu. Based on the evidence at hand, Sasori had then suggested that she was no longer safe in the village. In addition, the Anbu was unable to find Kushina or her other daughter at the time, and since the Uchiha rebellion was now a village secret ranked by the SS, they were unable to take any action against the Anbu in question without disclosing a secret that was too dangerous to share with everyone at this time. The young girl accepted Sasori's offer to train in the art of puppet jutsu and learn how to properly defend herself in the future, and it was decided to ask her what she wanted to do with her life. Jiraiya and Itachi both offered to help teach her the art of ninja when they could. Sasori chose to take his new apprentice with him on one of his first intelligence missions, which involved delivering important information to the Hidden Stone village in Earth Country. Nearly no one in the Hidden Leaf village knew that her father, the fourth Hokage, had been regarded as a hero for preventing a rebellious ninja army from killing their country's daimyo at the time. It was during this period that he had met the Kage of the Stone Village and his granddaughter, Kuratsuchi. For the time being, nothing, what I can do is nothing. However, you and I are much too old to continue engaging in such games. Is a new Hokage at last in order? Said Danzo. At this point, I only have one person in mind. The challenge will be getting her here. Good luck with that one, but I see your point, Danzo said, grinning. When she arrives, I'll get all the paperwork ready for her, and we can jointly debrief her and wish for the best. I hope we both survive this impending conflict, my friend. However, even if we don't, the great tree that is Konoha will bear new leaves, which will rekindle our strength and ignite the fire. Team Mist had already acquired duplicates of their Heaven and Earth scrolls after spending a large portion of the first day gathering as many scrolls as they could from their rivals. Naruko already suspected that both Gaara's and Kuretsuchi's teams had already passed the second section of the test and reached the tower in the middle of the forest. They found her sister's team quickly, and based on the evidence, they had already lost the opportunity to kill the snake at this point. However, it appears that he left them the curse seal as a parting gift. Shojiru turned to his teammates and remarked, "They've both got one from him, but not the cherry blossom one." Shojiru could feel the seal's power radiating off of Sasuke and Karen, but not the pink-haired one. Naruko gave this a nod, saying, "In a way, it makes sense. She hasn't been trained to the level she needs for this test, and he will only target the team's strongest members. If I am as familiar with the snake as I believe they are, in order to activate the seals and establish a foothold in their minds, he will send people to test him at Euro. Possibly even to kill them. It appears that we will remain here for some time. We've got 3.5 days till we have to be at the tower. We can do this," Haku replied. "We're going to watch their fate because it might provide us with some information about them in the future. At least in the finals, we'll know what we're up against," he said. As they moved into a better hiding spot to watch what would happen to Team 7, Naruko nodded in agreement. Nearly a day later, Naruko's suspicions were confirmed when a team from the Hidden Rain Village and Team 7 were attacked by the Sound Team as well. Despite the assistance of another Genin Rock Lee from Team Guy, they were unable to keep up with the two enemy teams, but things became more complicated when Sasuke and Karen woke up due to their curse seals activating due to the fighting around them. "Do you guys sense that something needs to be done about this?" Shojiru uttered those words. After giving him a nod, Naruko closed her straw hat and battle cloak, activated one of her unique seals on Blade, and took out two pieces of paper with intricate seals on them. Sometimes it was nice to be an Uzumaki. "What should we do first?" Haku inquired. "We start by eliminating the rain ninjas. After that, calm down the insane members of Team 7 and, if you can, try to kill sound ninjas. I want you to use the hidden mist jutsu on the rain ninjas as soon as we get down there, Shojiru, so we can eliminate them right away. Then, we'll see where it goes." Shojiru activated the jutsu, and they immediately sprang into action. Naruko told them, "Let's get to work." Under his breathing mask, the rain team leader was beaming because he was going to become a chunin and earn a fat salary from the mission. However, as he and his team were engulfed in a dense fog, his joy turned to fear because he knew exactly who had done this to him and his men. He had heard rumors that the Vixen possessed two weapons resembling the fabled lightning sword of the second Hokage, but he had always written them off as mere rumors. Two red beams of light in the shape of swords appeared just in front of him and his group, accompanied by a sharp hiss. He realized now that they were not stories, and things only got worse when he heard metal on metal, ice cracking, and bandages falling off a blade. He was unable to see his way through the fog or mist, but he knew that this jutsu was one of the most potent in the Hidden Mist villages and that it was a deadly weapon in the right hands. Before everything happened, he only managed to say, "They're not paying us enough for this shit." Almost instantly, Sakura recognized the jutsu being used and was relieved that she was not in it. Lee, wondering what was happening, had also recognized the jutsu and was impressed that someone could use it with such mastery and control. At that moment, everyone watching heard the sounds of battle, or in some cases, the sound of slaughter, as one of the rain nins managed to escape the mist only to have what appeared to be a spear shoot out of the mist and impale him in the chest. Then, they heard a feminine voice say, "Get over here." Seeing this foreign ninja retreat into a killing field was an amazing sight, even for Sasuke and Karen, who were enraged by the curse seal. Within a minute, the sounds of combat and death had completely stopped. The mist team in all its splendor and the remnants of the rain ninjas were visible as the mist dissipated from the immediate area. One of them appeared to have been sliced and diced by a red-dot hot sword of some sort, another had been shattered by ice, and the other had been sliced to pieces by multiple weapons. As they left the area, Naruko was just putting her straw hat back on, but she still had the new seal papers in her hands, ready to go at any time. With two curse seal influenced ninjas and superior numbers in jutsu, the sound team was now afraid, and rightfully so. However, they were up against a new group of ninjas whose skill level was easily comparable to that of low to mid-level Junin ninjas, so it was better to flee and fight another day rather than take on these foes head-on. Karen appeared more focused in her combat style against her sister in this state, trading punches and blocks as if it were nothing until Naruko saw an opening and took it, placing the seal on her neck and stopping the enraged state. Both Sasuke and Karen had a crazed look in their eyes as the curse seal spread across their bodies. They then charged the mist team head-on, but Sasuke was brought back to reality in a flash after receiving a foot to his face and a seal to the back of his neck. To put it mildly, the teams watching this fight were impressed. Karen paused and looked at her sister, asking, "What was that?" A little something I cooked up to deal with those pesky curse seals. I am an Uzumaki after all. Then she approached Sakura and said, Ms., do you have the scrolls you need to pass this section of the test? My name is Sakura, and no, they are no longer with us. They were destroyed by those eerie grass ninjas. Sakura was shocked that her teammate's sister was even assisting them when Chojuru pulled out 2 scrolls and tossed them to her. Why? Was all she needed to ask. Because, incidentally, there is more going on than you realize. You fought the outlaw Sanin Orohimaru, not a grass ninja. And he is wanted dead in almost every village. Additionally, ensure that those curse seals are removed. Either by her mother or your sensei. The mist team then starts to leave for the forest. Then Karen yelled, Naruko, she's also your mother, and we'll take you back to your house. Then, as Naruko turned to face her sister, they came to a halt. She's not my mother anymore. Sister, we hope to see you soon. There would be a lot of work to do later, but they still needed to pass this section of the test, so they vanished from sight in a flash. Because of his bloodline limit, Neji had been the only one to witness the mist team in action. It was obvious that she would be difficult to defeat. Tenten simply needed more information about her. Neji, what did you see in the mist? We must constantly watch them, Tenten, because they are weapons experts I have never seen before. Before anything else occurs, let's get Lee out of here. After spending the remainder of the day in the tower in the middle of the forest, Team Mist entered one of the rooms and immediately understood the meaning of a mural that said something about the mind and body. Chojuru then opened the scrolls, which started to emit smoke as soon as they were open. He threw them far away from the team and waited to see what would happen next, when their sensei Zabuza appeared in front of them. Well done team, this will make Mei very happy indeed, he said, grinning at them from behind his bandages. Did anything else occur that I should be aware of? Naruko said, afraid so sensei, afraid so, as he passed him. I don't think it can wait, and we need to see the old man immediately. The team quickly arrived at the room with the third Hokage and the exam proctor, Anko, who was busy rubbing and holding the back of Naruko's neck, clearly in some pain. The old Hokage saw the team coming and stood up to welcome them, pleased to see that Naruko had passed the second section of the test. Her words to them would soon put an end to his joy. Oromaru attacked Team 7 while he was in the forest. The curse seal has been activated in both my sister and the Uchiha. As we speak, they ought to be en route to the tower. Hearing this, Sarutobi could only worry that Karen, with her mother's assistance, might be able to resist the seal's power like Anko, but Sasuke was a different matter. It was used to get Itachi into the Akatsuki organization as the Hidden Leaf's undercover agent, and only a few people even knew about this SS rank village secret. The old man had no illusions that Sasuke was occasionally a little unstable because of what had happened during the Uchiha massacre, which had only left a few children, women, and his mother alive after all was said and done. So not only are you out to destroy your former home, my foolish student, but you plan to corrupt 2 of our most promising ninjas. I knew we can save one of them, but it's just the other one I'm worried about, said Naruko, one of them, regarding his foolish student's attempt to do something dark and unnatural in the village. Anko echoed his thoughts, saying, mark my words, Lord Hokage. The Uchiha will soon turn into one extremely unstable ninja. Karen is kept grounded in reality by her mother and sensei. Who knows, her mother might even strengthen and stabilize the seal for her. This is only the beginning for my former sensei. He has something planned, and we are not at all happy about it. Get me Junin sensei Kakashi Hitaki right now, and increase the number of Anbu in the forest at once, the Hokage said, turning to one of his Anbu. Now, what should we do? I mean, the finals are in 3 days, Chojuru inquired. Anko was the one who responded, saying, if you arrive early, one of the Chunin will show you to your designated room in the tower. Oh, and Naruko. She turned back to face a person she regarded as her big sister. Good luck out there. Anko turned to the Hokage and said, she'll be waiting for my bastard of a sensei to make his move, and I hope she kills him slowly and painfully, after Naruko nodded and smiled at her as she left the room. Additionally, Kushina will want to participate, as you are aware. We'll keep our eyes open, now more than ever. Naruko was not surprised that the 3 rookie teams, 2 more teams from the Hidden Leaf, and the Sound team had advanced to the finals. They were all waiting in the arena to hear what would happen next. Team Mist and a number of other teams waited for the finals to start for the next 3 days. The Hokage smiled and said, I would like to congratulate you on making it to the semi-finals of the Chunin exams. These exams were originally created to replace war in a time of peace and to give our potential clients a show as to who to hire in times of need. The Hokage was present, along with all of the Junin sensei. To find out who moves on to the final round in a month, You will soon meet your proctor for this section of the test and start a 1-on-1 battle. Because far too many of you passed the final section of the test, since it's now a 1-on-1 match, your entire team won't be eliminated or disqualified from the tests if one of you loses. Therefore, speak up right away if you feel that you are too tired or injured to compete any longer. There is no shame in this. However, you will be permitted to watch the remaining fights. Does anyone want to drop out of the exam, then? I must respectively withdraw due to both injury and exhaustion. I cannot in good conscience compete anymore, Kabuto said, the only competitor to raise his hand. All Naruto can think is, I'll be watching you, spy. However, a new Junin interrupted the Hokage before he could say anything more, saying, pardon me, Lord, but perhaps I should, explain the rules as I am the final proctor. The Hokage gave him a nod to continue. All right, this section of the test will be proctored by me, Gecko Hayate. My name is, first off, if I sense that someone has already lost or that one of you is going to pass away needlessly, I will step in right away. Once I see that it is over, it is over. We'll see who goes first if everyone looks up at the screen. After a series of names, the screen finally settled on? The semi-finals were, to put it mildly, intriguing. Sasuke Uchiha and one of Kabout's teammates faced off in the opening match. The Uchiha had barely defeated his opponent and was unable to use his bloodline, the Sharingan, without running the risk of the curse seal's power activating once more. Sasuke was sent to a special room to have the curse seal removed after he had just barely won due to a move in which he stole Rock Lee. He and his opponent were then taken to the medical staff in the tower. Naruto had to acknowledge that it was a miracle he was still alive. The next pair to battle was Shino and Zaku, one of the sound ninjas. To put it mildly, it was an epic mismatch. His sound jutsu had been strong but ineffective against the leaf ninja, as one of his arms had been blown off entirely. By the time the battle was over, Kakashi had returned with his squad and one additional persona Kushina Uzumaki. At this point, Kabout's team's final member was called down to battle one of the Send ninjas, who happened to be the puppet user Kankuro. He had taken the bundle off his back when the masked ninja attacked him, and he appeared to be able to stretch his body and confine Kankuro until he gave up or died. However, he didn't realize that the bundle was actually Kankuro, and the battle puppet he was confining was the one who killed him. The board came to life again, displaying two new names, and then it was Sakura's and Ino's turn to fight. It was obvious that the two were engaged in some sort of rivalry, as they exchanged punches and jutsus until Ino finally ripped off the back of her ponytail in order to use one of her jutsus Sakura to take over her body and attempt to force her to forfeit the match. Ino was caught off guard by Sakura's inner personality, which retaliated against her jutsu, and they engaged in intense hand combat, ending in a double knockout and tie. The next match was between Team Guy's Tenten and Tamari of the Sand Team. Tenten was a weapons expert, but this was the worst matchup for her because Tamari used her wind jutsu to block and divert her weapons. Tenten gained more than she expected from the fight, and by the end, she was either unconscious or unable to fight her opponents. The next matchup was between another sound ninja, but this time it was the turn of the female ninja, Kin, and her opponent, Shikamaru Nara, who was dubbed the lazy genius of Konoha but was still a genius. The fight began as a tug-of-war between Wells, with both of them taunting and testing each other's skills to find a weakness in their strategies. Unfortunately for Kin, Shikamaru won because he caught her in his shadow possession jutsu and moved her into a position where she could be eliminated with his jutsu. The board reanimated, rearranging the remaining names until it reached the final one. Yes, okay, Akamaru, we can get revenge on her for what she did to us in Wave Country by taking her out. Kiba Inuzuka versus Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko thought to herself, great, I have to fight the dog and cute puppy too, and worse, he has no respect for the female population. Great. At least she knew a little bit about his clan's capabilities. Kiba leapt down to the arena to await the start of his fight with Naruko, who then sealed up her battle cloak and hat before revealing a few special surprises for this opponent. She wasn't going to make this battle too easy for him because she had already observed that all of the competitors who had won had taken advantage of their opponent's weaknesses quite well, some more so than others. The only two that were disappointing, in her opinion, were the fights between Sakura and Ino. It was evident that they had not taken their careers as ninjas very seriously, but Kiba could not be classified that easily. She could tell that he trained hard and was always prepared for a fight, and he had underestimated her the first time. As they approached each other to wait for the proctor to start the match, Naruko took a small box out of one of her pockets, a box of strawberry Pocky, and put one in her mouth. She looked up and saw a look on Kiba's face and then said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you probably want this in dog food flavor, right?" She took a bite of another piece with a smile on her face, making him even more important than before, and then she decided to add more salt to the wound. Kiba's face had turned red with rage, and even the proctor had backed off a little, but this was all part of her plan. Break them before you fight was a basic rule that one of her senseis had taught her long ago, and it was the rule that she had been taught when stealth was not an option, like now. And I don't mean the cute puppy there. Akamaru was starting to like her a lot but knew his partner was going to get his ass kicked big time, and by a girl no less. As soon as the proctor said begin, Kiba ran right at her and began to attack ferociously. Every single one of his clan's attack signatures hit home and sent her flying into the wall of the tower arena. Or so he thought. He then heard clapping and looked up to see her standing on the side of the wall just under the stands. Both he and his puppy were in shock at seeing this. That's not possible. I know what a shadow clone is, and they can't take that kind of punishment. She took another bite of her Pocky with that smile on her face and then jumped to the other side of the arena just as she said, who said it was a shadow clone dog boy. Before Kiba could recognize the danger signs, a huge explosion of air hit both him and his partner Akamaru dead on, sending them across the arena floor. They were both in a lot of pain from the clone's detonation. Up in the stands, both Kakashi and Kushina were truly impressed by her tactics in this battle so far. So, she's got a clone technique that can double as a bomb at the last minute and can take more damage than a shadow clone can throughout its life. You truly are your father's daughter, Naruko, Kushina thought to herself. Naruko was now more ready for anything that might come of her earlier surprise attack. What they didn't know is that her attack had not even been at full power. Kiba and his partner slowly got up to get back into a fighting stance, realizing this would not be an easy fight, but he had to ask. What the hell was that? Oh, that? She smiled at him again. You see, the more damage you do to that clone of a compression bomb I made. As Kiba and Akamaru, who were in his men's beast clone mode, were busy engaging her clones and blocking punches, kicks, uppercuts, and even once or twice a kick to their balls, the real Naruko pulled out her secret weapon, jumped right over them, and threw down her stink bomb between Kiba and Akamaru. The bigger the boom is dog breath. Before Kiba and Akamaru could establish a fighting stance, Naruko had already made up to 5 more shadow clones, who were then sent to engage the tag team in combat. When he realized the fight was already over, the original Naruko walked up in front of him and, with a single swift motion, kicked him in the crotch with all of her righteous female rage. The smell of the bomb was so strong that everyone could smell it throughout the arena, and both humans and dogs were rendered incapacitated. When he looked up just in time, he saw her return with her right hand and strike him so forcefully that one of his teeth flew out of his mouth, still dripping blood, as it struck the arena floor directly in front of the proctor. The blow was so severe that he was on his knees, both hands covering his family jewels, and let out a high-pitched scream unlike any other. Almost all of the men were crossing their fingers that she wouldn't do the same to them. She approached the proctor and said, "Well? Naruko Uzumaki is the winner," she said. "Of course, look at my ass like that again and I'll kill you, dog boy." Kiba had just recovered enough to look at her and had to concede that she was gorgeous. He whimpered as they carried him away to the tower's medical ward, and the only thought that crossed his mind was, women are scary. Naruko saw the board come to life once more as she ascended, this time with the names Neji Hyuga versus Hinata Hyuga. Naruko told the girl, "Don't worry, it'll be all right," after noticing the terrified expression on her face. "All you can do is wait and see. But in the meantime, fight him hard and keep him out of here." She pointed to her head to finish. It was a vicious and needless fight, and the other Junin senseis even stopped Neji's last attempt to kill her at the last second, but it was obvious to her that they had problems. The young girl smiled once more and proceeded down to the arena. Neji had tried everything in his power to destroy her confidence in spirit, but he had failed and instead chose to destroy her body and life. She leapt to the arena floor, approached Hinata, and applied one of her special medical seals to her chest. The damage was mostly fixed, but she would still require immediate medical attention, so at least her life was no longer in jeopardy and she would recover much faster. She turned to face Neji and stared into his icy white eyes, and for the first time in his life, he felt true fear. Not the fear that the caged bird seal had caused. No. This was much more powerful, more primal, something that only a female could inflict that level of fear and dread when it was deserved. This was the epitome of righteous female fury at its height. Her next words sent ice water into his veins as she reached down and put her hand inside it, then brought it up to squeeze the blood out onto the floor while making perfect eye contact with him. "No mercy, I'm coming for your blood. No law, no code of conduct. Only retribution. And you'll beg for forgiveness when I'm done with you. And I won't have any. He's mine, so I had better get him first, old man." Neji thought the Grim Reaper was waiting for him to die after she left, almost as if he were telling him, "You're just living on borrowed time now, boy. You should never have hurt that beautiful flower that loved you so much, because you must now confront that lethal rose." The next battle was between Gaara and Rock Lee, two warriors from the Hidden Leaf and Hidden Sand who were surprisingly evenly matched. Lee was nearly unmatched in strength and speed in hand combat, but Gaara had also learned how to be a defensive and offensive fighter at the same time, so the two were going all out. By the end of the match, Lee had unlocked all the gates he could safely, but Gaara had used some of his special sand moves on a nearly crushed Lee. The only bright side is that Lee was not seriously injured or permanently damaged. Unfortunately, aside from 1 or 2 matches, Naruto had grown pretty disinterested in them by this time. When Choji turned into a giant ball with chains on and tried to run down his opponent like a dead dog on highway, you would have thought he had won, but his opponent was much stronger than he looked and sent him flying into a wall so hard he was out cold. The next match had been between Choji and the last Sound Ninja, and it had been, for want of a better word, interesting. Even though all the Junin believed it was more of a cage-level battle than a straightforward fight for the Chunin rank, the fact that both of them were female only made all the men more afraid, and with good reason, as the next match had been between Haku and her dear friend Kuretsuchi from Stone Village in Earth Country. It wasn't that the fight turned into a straight-out fight, but rather that it turned into World War III with the two trading blows left and bloody right. Sadly, Haku was knocked out. After the final 2 members of the Stone team knock each other out, the final fight of the semi-finals would take place. The list of who would fight who in Konoha Stadium was now being shown to everyone, and Shojiru was a little disappointed that he had not had the opportunity to test his fighting skills, but he also knew that this could work out for him in the final matches. Naruto vs Neji, Gaara vs Sasuke, Shino vs Kankuro. Tamari vs Shikamaru, Chojiru vs Kuretsuchi. Dosu vs Karen. Naruto gave Neji a look that said, "I'm coming for you. Dead man walking," after everything had been announced to them. Neji was not helped by the fact that she was staring at him. All he could think was, "I have to train. Fate will make sure I beat her." Fortunately, Naruto was ready for what her mother and sister might do in the upcoming month, and she had brought something to deal with both threats, so she wouldn't even need the entire month. Naruto then left the tower with her team to prepare for the impending battle against Neji and her sister. She didn't have any illusions that she would fight her sister in the exam finals. As one of her syntheses would say occasionally, it was a mathematical certainty. However, she was an overkill enthusiast and was aware that her mother would handle the curse seal on her sister's neck. Karen had been practicing meditation for a while because her mother had instructed her to do so in order to extract the evil soul fragment from the curse seal itself. The special seal ritual that was going to be performed would also reconstruct the curse seal into something new. She could already sense the foul snake's soul attempting to buy her power, but she chose to ignore him. At this point, her mother entered the room carrying an odd box that displayed a symbol for the death gods as well as their natural enemies, the hollows on which stood their opposites. The seals in the room were among the most intricate Karen had ever seen, and Kushina positioned the box directly in front of her daughter, opening it to reveal what appeared to be a sword and a piece of bone shaped like a jaw. "Now, Karen, to fight the dark snake's seal," her mother said to her. "I have to reconstruct the curse seal into something more for you and destroy that piece of soul using these artifacts from our ancestors. My little one, it will no longer have a negative impact on you that you will have to battle every day of your life. But aside from the Hokage and me, you might be unstoppable with its strength and your father's jutsu, the Flying Thunder God. However, I'm hoping you can use this power, which I am unable to use, to bring your sister back to us. I regret to inform you that I made more mistakes with her than with you. However, this could be our only opportunity to get her. Now, little one, hold on to yourself. You're going to have an incredible experience." Kushina activated the seals and started the procedure at that precise moment, not realizing how crucial her decision would ultimately be. Although no one knew it, Hinata Hyuga had been Naruto's best friend as a young girl and was viewed with disdain by Naruto as one of her first real friends in the village. It was one of the reasons she was so eager to murder her former friend's cousin so quickly. She then turned to face a section of the room and uttered the words, "You old pervert, you can come out now. Jiraiya, I know you're there." At this moment, a man named Jiraiya the Toad Sanin of the Hidden Leaf Village, one of Hinata's senseis, emerged from the wall and walked up beside her at her bedside. He had long white hair and red markings just under his eyes. "You know, kid, how I hate it when you call me that, right? Do I look like someone who gives a shit, you old pervert?" she asked, turning to face him. He looked down at the girl in the bed and said, "How is she? I had to give in to her on that one. I hope she will have fully recovered by the time she spends 2 weeks in this facility." The old man sent for you to return, isn't that right? Sighing, he moved to one of the room's chairs and sat down before uttering, yes and no. On this one, he is aware that we will require all the assistance possible. Your mother is preparing a major event. I am also aware that she possesses the Flying Thunder God. When Naruko opened her eyes, she closed them tightly and stared at the ground. Whatever her family was planning, it was not going to go well, and she should only imagine what would occur in a month. The expression on her face then caught Jiraiya's attention. You're planning something, aren't you? She smiled as she picked up her belongings and made her way to the hospital room's door. Oh, yes, she had a plan. If I were you, Sensei, I would get a seat in the stadium because I'm going to put on one hell of a show, she said as she left. A chair and a large screen with a powerful computer system that was busy replaying one of the battles from the Chunin exam semi-finals were placed in the center of the room, and Kabuto entered slowly as he entered a room adorned with numerous video monitors and other equipment. Several sound ninja were also moving around the room, checking on things. Mizuki, one of Orochimaru's numerous undercover agents who assisted him in destroying the Hidden Leaf Village, was seated at this station. It had been one of the battles he had not witnessed firsthand, and he could tell that this match between the two stone and mist ninjas was something to behold. By this time, Kabuto had approached him and fixed his eyes on the screens. The moment the proctor said, "Go," it became a full-on brawl. Although Kabuto had never bothered to learn their names, he was impressed by their fighting style, and the two engaged in a hand taijutsu match like he had never witnessed before, trading punches and blocks, kicks and sweeps while flinging ash and ice jutsu around as if they were nothing. The mist kunoichi's chest was the target of a very strong blow from the stone kunoichi, but it was blocked by a wall of ice. Together, the two jutsu produced a searing hot steam that struck them both squarely in the face. The stone nin used this advantage to launch her attack and eliminate the mist ninja. Kabuto grinned and then responded, "It would appear that the team from the Hidden Mist are far more unpredictable than we had anticipated, wouldn't you say, Mizuki?" "Yes, I would. My only wish is that I had received permission from Lord Orochimaru to take her to the Forest of Death. She will only become a greater threat to his plans if she continues at this rate. Don't be concerned. He wants you and your special team to remove her as soon as the invasion begins, and he wants it done quickly. Is your group prepared for this?" "They'll be ready for the finals, you can count on it, Kabuto," Mizuki said with a smile as she sat up. "Just expect the unexpected with the Vixen competing here in the exams, I know I will." The Water Country Consulate in Fire Country's Hidden Leaf Village was extremely busy 2 weeks prior to the start of the Chunin exam finals. All of the Mist competitors were staying at the consulate instead of a hotel because it provided them with better training opportunities and an extra layer of security. Gaara of the Desert was seen walking down one of the many hallways to visit one of his oldest friends, even though he would not confess it to his sister that he had feelings for her. Gaara was startled when he walked into a huge room called Workshop V and saw that there were at least 100 Narukos working there. One of them was standing with a man in the middle of the space holding a huge object that he immediately recognized as a battle puppet. Then he approached her and said, "I see you've been very busy. The haughtiness of the Hyuga has made you question whether he has the right to exist. Naruko, I'm happy that you and that old pervert fixed my seal." "Well, he did piss me off, Gaara," she said, smiling and swaying to her hips as she approached him. "Additionally, some individuals must be brought down a page or two. Please keep your fingers crossed for me. All I can hope for is that he is intelligent enough to learn from it. Are you here to see me for any other reason? It's not that I don't enjoy seeing you, my friends, but perhaps even more?" He nodded to her and said, "You've been in the consulate for 2 weeks straight, I think it's time that you come out and have some fun with me." The redhead blushed as if there were no tomorrow, which made her smile even more. "How would you respond to it?" Naruko approached him, placed her face next to his, and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Why, my powerful desert flower? Are you requesting a date with me?" He simply nodded, yes, to her, not believing anything he said at the time. "Oh, that's really lovely." Gaara saw the old man and the rather unusual looking blade he was working on as she began to set things down and remove her work apron. "Just give me a little time to freshen up, okay?" she said. "What are you working on, Naruko, and who are these gentlemen?" "This is my new puppet I've been working on, Gaara, and this fine gentleman here is the master bladesmith of Water Country, Hattori Hanzo. I have heard much about you, young raccoon. If you break her heart, not even your sand armor will protect you from my Hanzo steel," the man in question said, pausing his work on the blade to approach Gaara. Gaara gave him a tense nod, realizing that this man was telling the truth. Hanzo returned to his work on the unique blade he had been developing. It resembled a long blade in shape. He continued, "This blade is one of my finest works, Naruko, and considering the puppet it is intended for. I find it very fitting. I believe with this blade and puppet if you were to meet God, I believe they would cut him as well. Remember, young fox, what you fight for. What? You are willing to die for. Now go. The night is young and so are you too. A.N. The theme song for Naruto and Gaara is Before It's Too Late by the Goo Goo Dolls, which begins to play at this point in the narrative. As she left to prepare for her date with Gaara, Naruto smiled at the elderly man and then kissed him on the cheek. To continue her work, she created 100 more shadow clones. To get Gaara's attention, Hanzo had to give him a quick tap on the shoulder. I would get ready if I were you, and I hope you like ramen a lot. Gaara had been the one to introduce him to ramen, and he did enjoy it. He was grinning sincerely. Gaara held out his arm for her to take, and she did, as they left the consulate together. A short while later, Naruto came out of a section of her workshop wearing a nice outfit that showed off her amazing figure to the world. Together, they strolled down the street of her old village toward a small ramen stand run by the Ichiraku family, who she considered to be family. Naruto and Gaara settled in and placed their order. They chatted with the proprietors and had a great time laughing while grinning and consuming their ramen. Gaara and Naruto ended up kissing each other while eating the same strand of ramen, much to the Ichiraku's surprise. It was their first time ever sharing a passionate kiss. After saying their goodbyes and walking down a street while many of the villagers stared at them, the two decided to enter a small barbecue restaurant because, in the past, it was one of the few places she could eat in safety. A.N. The song ends here, but don't forget that you can watch the videos and listen to the songs on YouTube. When they arrived at the restaurant and discovered that it was solely occupied by shinobi, one of the waiters approached them and said, "Welcome, what would you care for tonight?" After rubbing her chin with her hand for a moment, Naruto snapped her fingers and addressed the waiter. "We would like a nice table and a dessert menu, please." Naruto and Gaara were unaware at the time that her mother and sister were sitting a few tables away and could see them both sitting down when the waiter nodded and led them to a table close to a karaoke stage. "Mother, look over there," was Karen's first comment upon spotting them. Kushina was, to put it mildly, shocked to see her daughter Naruto sitting with one of the sand ninjas where she had indicated. The two seemed to be eating a huge piece of chocolate fudge cake when she saw her mother staring at her. Her companion saw the dark frown that had replaced her previous joyful expression. After glancing at the karaoke stage, she gestured for Gaara to join her in singing a couple of songs. Gaara took up a microphone and got ready to sing his parts of the songs after she started to unseal a guitar and create multiple shadow clones to play the parts. They both chose the songs they wanted to sing, and she started off by singing the song with a guitar riff. Bon Jovi's song, "Wanted Dead or Alive." It's all the same, only the names have changed. "Every day, it seems we are wasting away." Another Platch. "Where the faces are so cold. I drive all night to get back home. I'm a cowboy, on the steel horse I ride. I'm wanted. Dead or alive. Wanted, dead or alive." She sang it to the restaurant's patrons, and as the crowd grew, her mother and sister were right at the front and were undoubtedly understanding what she was saying. A powerful guitar riff started up again, and she began to sing the lyrics once more. "I'm a cowboy, on the steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive. Wanted, dead or alive. Sometimes I sleep, sometimes it's not for days. And the people I meet, always go their separate ways. Sometimes you tell the day, by the bottle that you drink. And times when you're all alone, all you do is think. I'm a cowboy, on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted dead or alive, wanted dead or alive. I walk these streets, a loaded 6-string on my back. I play for keeps, because I might not make it back." The guitar riff started again and grew louder and stronger until she finally screamed, "Oh, I ride." At this point, all of the clones were jamming along with her amazing guitar solo. After a while, she finally ended the song. "I'm not coming back" was the straightforward message Kushina was taking away from this song, living or dead. "I'm a cowboy, on a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted dead or alive. I'm a cowboy, I got the night on my side. I'm wanted dead or alive, wanted dead or alive." As the song came to an end, they started getting ready for the next one. "Somewhere I Belong," a song by Lyndon Park. With this song, the clones started to get much more energized once the lyrics and a powerful guitar and bass riff started. "When this began, I had nothing to say and I get lost in the nothingness inside of me. I was confused. And I let it all out to find that I'm not the only person with these things in mind. Inside of me. But all the vacancy, the words revealed is the only thing that I've got left to feel. Nothing to lose. Just stuck, hollow and alone. And the fault is my own, and the fault is my own." Gaara had the lyrics to most of the song up to this point in time. "I want to heal. I want to feel. What I thought was never real. I want to let go of the pain I've held so long." Naruko then started singing so that everyone could hear her heartfelt feelings. Gaara sang to them, "Erase all the pain, till it's gone. I want to heal. I want to feel like I'm close to something real. I want to find something I've wanted all along, somewhere I belong." After singing his portion of the song once more, Gaara said, "And I've got nothing to say. I can't believe I didn't fall right down on my face. I was confused, looking everywhere, only to find that it's not the way I had imagined it all in my mind. So what am I? What do I have but negativity, 'cause I can't justify the way everyone is looking at me. Nothing to lose. Nothing to gain. Hollow and alone, and the fault is my own. The fault is my own. I want to heal. I want to feel. What I thought was never real. I want to let go of the pain I've held so long. Erase all the pain, till it's gone. I want to heal. I want to find something I've wanted all along. Somewhere I belong. I will never know myself until I do this on my own, and I will never feel anything else until my wounds are healed." Hearing this from her daughter made Kushina wince, and the hazy memories of that evening returned to her with fervor as tears streamed down her cheeks. "I will never be anything till I break away from me, and I will break away. I'll find myself today. I want to heal. I want to feel. What I thought was never real. I want to let go of the pain I've held so long. Get rid of all the pain until it disappears. I want to heal. I want to feel like I'm close to something real. I want to find something I've wanted all along. Somewhere I belong. I want to heal. I want to feel like I'm somewhere I belong." Naruko kept playing the song, delivering the final line with such impact that she made her point clear to everyone present: somewhere I belong. The crowd applauded as Naruko and Gaara left the restaurant, dismissing her clones and sealing the insurance away. "Naruko." Kushina called out to her daughter as she and her daughter watched them leave and return to the consulate, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Give me another chance, please. I remember everything you three did to me that night," Naruko said, pausing and turning her head slightly to face her mother. "At this moment, I am unable to forgive you. I wonder if I will ever be able to." When Gaara's sand rose to protect him or her, Kushina couldn't let the opportunity pass and attempted to run up to her daughter, but Naruko placed her hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't. Let's just go, okay? Let them do this for me, Gaara." She sank to the ground in tears as the two vanished from her view. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Naruko. Please forgive me." As the memories of that night returned to her, Naruko sobbed as she settled into one of the chairs in her consulate workshop. Gaara approached her and got on his knees to meet her eye level. "What happened to you, Naruko? What happened to you that night? Please tell me." She questioned him. "Are you sure you want to know?" He gave her a nod. "All right. This is what happened to me, that night. The day my whole world went away." Rewind. A.N. The song from the Terminator Salvation soundtrack, "The Day the World Went Away" by 9 Inch Nails, begins to play. When Naruko was 4.5 years old, she ran home from the academy in the hopes of seeing her mother and the Anbu, which she called Dog. A strange man wearing a black cloak and a strange mask on his face jumped out of her house and made his way to the Uchiha district as she reached the door. Happily, Naruko entered her house and started to look around, hoping to see Dog, her mother, and her sister. When she rounded a corner and ascended the stairs to the second floor, she saw her mother, sister, and Dog standing there, looking dazed. She was grinning as she attempted to rush up to her mother for a hug, but it did not work out that way. At this point, the song's hard-core section begins to play. She felt 2 knives stab her in the chest before she realized what was about to happen. Her sister then threw a heavy lamp at her, striking her in the face and sending one of her teeth flying out of her mouth. With the blades still in her chest, her mother threw her against the wall before throwing her across the room, removing them in the process. She then saw lightning surrounding Dog's hand that struck her in the side and heard what sounded like birds chirping. After she struck the ground near a window, her mother and the Anbu picked her up and hurled her through the window. As she flew through the window and toward the ground, some of the glass was cutting her. Unfortunately, it wasn't over for her. She lay on another roof, coughing up blood from her mouth while trying to move and escape. Unfortunately, she noticed her mother and the Anbu had just landed next to her. She screamed for her mother to stop causing her pain. She eventually found herself in the Uchiha district, where a fierce battle was raging, as the assault went on. Before they attempted to kill her, she had a final chance to look into their eyes. Fortunately for her, she landed directly next to Itachi Uchiha and his mother Makoto, who were fighting fiercely against the unidentified masked man who then spotted Naruko and attempted to approach her. They threw her over the side of the building right into the middle of the battle. Just prior to this, Makoto witnessed what her best friend had done to her daughter, which ultimately caused him to back out of the engagement. She was taken aback by what she saw. After the devoted Uchiha defeated their clan's traitors, he immediately set out to save as many people as possible, including the young blonde girl who had been abandoned for dead. Sarutobi saw one of the most fascinating puppets he had ever seen. It was a masterwork made by a true artist. He nearly felt sorry for Neji because he had to battle Naruto. He was aware that war was on its way to all of them and that today might be his last day here on Earth. He looked away from the work of art and into the blue eyes of the master and creator, and he knew without a doubt that this invasion would fail and that his stupid student would pay a price today. He questioned her, "Are you sure you're ready for this one, Naruko?" She had already put on her battle cloak, a new special battlesuit, and armor designed specifically for her for this battle. She grabbed her straw hat, which had once belonged to her sensei, from a table. After that, she put the hat on her head and turned to face him. "I'm as ready as I'll ever be, old man. Just make sure that that son of a bitch that was once your student, old man, doesn't kill you or the other coming. Please be safe." "I will try, Naruko. But even I do not know what is going to happen today," he said after giving her a nod. Neji was going to be among the first to witness this puppet in action up close, so she nodded her head in agreement and went on to seal off her most recent creation. He was going to have to learn his lesson the hard way, and this time there would be no holding back. "No matter what happens out there, do your best to live all right. I didn't want to lose you guys," she responded, nodding to her team and close friends as she followed him out of her workshop. Putting a hand on Naruko's shoulder, Kuretsuchi said, "Let's just get through the exams before all hell breaks loose, and try to get promoted as well, you guys." Under her hat, Naruko grinned and started toward the door. She halted at the threshold, turned to face them, and said, "All right guys. Let's go kick some ass." A.N. The background music starts playing, Otherworld, from the opening scene of Final Fantasy X and the last boss battle. As hundreds of spectators flocked to the village's high-tech arena to watch the Chunin exam finals, music could be heard coming from Konoha Stadium. The various daimyos of several nations were seated in the stadium's opulent private boxes to watch the future of the ninja world as they knew it. The old Hokage sat directly next to the phony Kazekage and his two bodyguards in a different box containing the various cages from the villages taking the test. The phony cage had a veil covering the lower portion of his face. The new Mizukage Mei was placed on the opposite side of him, with bodyguards right behind her. The old man grinned as he observed the assembled final exam competitors. From what he could see, only two appeared to be absent. To say that she was beautiful would be an understatement of the year. He was aware that one of them would not be taking the test at all at this point, but the other was the supposedly great Uchiha, who was actually Sasuke, and his sensei Kakashi Hitaki were not in the arena at the moment. On the one hand, he was grateful that the Uchiha would not be taking the tests and could not be swayed by his former pupil. However, once this was all over, he would have to deal with his former student's delay tactics and the civilian council a Euro. That is, if he survived, which was extremely unlikely. However, he had made peace and organized his affairs in case this was his last day as a living person. The band left the field as the song ended so that the contestants could prepare for their ballots. The fights were about to start. All opponents who were not competing were instructed by the new fight proctor to report to the fighter's box in order to await their turn and the start of their match. Neji could just make out Naruko's cold eyes as they stared back at him. He had always heard tales of women occasionally being even more dangerous than men. He felt a chilly, dark force emanating from her, and he was beginning to believe them about that. However, this young woman seemed to have an abundance of one thing that he had not in his argument with his cousin: complete command. Furthermore, control in the wrong hands was more dangerous than any superpower jutsu. He was aware that this battle would not be simple. However, he was still too conceited for his own good to understand that this would not be a typical battle. Furthermore, fate had other ideas for him. Shikamaru, one of the final competitors to exit the field and pass Neji, said this: "You are so dead, and you don't even know it yet, how troublesome." He was going to enjoy this flight as much as she did, so Neji ignored him and continued to watch his target. However, it is frequently asserted that reality differs greatly from our thoughts and actions. Proctor, who was now between them, gave a brief speech about the rules, which are essentially unchanged, and that he would break up the fight if it got out of control. The two walked close to one another but not at arm's length. Naruko observed the Hyuga's movements and realized that he was too arrogant to take this seriously, as one of her sensei had previously told her. Before the fall, pride. This turned out to be the best way to describe Neji's attitude toward her and them. And as they say, it would ultimately be his downfall. Began. The proctor said as he raised his hand in the air and then brought it down. He leapt back quickly and watched the fight for any issues, but neither had moved as of yet. "If you are wise woman, you will forfeit this match. Fate has determined me the victor in this." Neji then started to ruthlessly address her. It seemed to Neji then that she had not received his message. Rather, a tiny scroll appeared to slide down the left sleeve of her battle cloak, and in an instant, the straw hat and battle cloak were sealed away, showcasing her amazing figure and amazing battle attire. Almost nothing could be imagined because the clothing was so tight. The only parts of her body that were visible to the outside world were her head, flat stomach, and arms. He also noticed that some of her clothing was heavily armored, which made him uneasy. When she flexed her wrists, two blades emerged from the armored bracelets she was wearing, exposing two extremely sharp-looking blades on her wrists, which she then retracted. There was a tiny area with numerous scrolls on her back, and there were two odd-looking weapons on either side of her back, just like her first sensei had on his puppet body. Her hair was a single long blonde ponytail at the back of her head, and she wore jet black gloves with the fingertips cut off, exposing her fingers and nails to the world. Her eyes had grown colder as a result of what he had said. He could see at least 30 extremely complex seals on her bare arms, and he wondered what they were all for. He had a suspicion that there were many more seals all over her body that he was unable to see. He had never seen her adopt such a powerful fighting stance. Neji made the decision to try to make fun of her again. So you show your body to the world. Unlike my teammate, you are nothing but a fangirl who only wished to land a man and spread your legs for him. As I said, fate has decided your destiny in this match. Her eyes narrowed at this moment, and he felt a pressure that was unlike anything he had ever experienced in his life. She gave him a savage grin before seemingly vanishing from sight, then appearing directly in front of him once more, her fist cocked back in like a gun's trigger, sending him flying back at least 10 feet and leaving blood on the arena floor. Neji recovered swiftly and launched an assault after realizing that there could be no mistakes and that attacking was his only choice. He waited for the attack, his bloodline blazing, trying to poke her every time she ducked and blocked him, avoiding the damage his other strikes would do to her chakra network. This went on for a while as the two fought each other. The proctor was impressed, to put it mildly, because facing a Hyuga in hand combat was sometimes regarded as suicide unless you were a taijutsu expert like Maeda Guy. The fight appeared to be more of a Junin level contest than a Chunin level 1, shocking and astounding the judges and spectators alike. Many were exchanging words as they realized that Naruko was no longer the young child whose life they had ruined for years, and that she was now able to tell and fight back. This kind of fighting went on for at least a full minute before he managed to hit one of her exposed spots. Regretfully, this also meant that he touched one of her breasts, and the look of rage grew even more intense when he was struck in the face again, sending him reeling back. Almost all of the perverts in the stadium yelled and yelled at him for what he had done. Many of them also had nosebleeds from the clothes she was wearing at the time, and some of them had been beaten by their girlfriends and wives for their remarks. With the threat of retaliation for Hinata's sake, the fight had already been risky enough. At this point, it became more deadly than it had ever been. Following the blow to Neji's face, Naruko leapt back and created up to 20 shadow clones in midair, which launched an assault. In an attempt to identify which of the clones was the original, Neji was now avoiding and attacking them, but the clones were far more dangerous than he had initially believed, and it was obvious that they were attempting to murder him. When he eventually dispelled all the clones, he turned to see her a distance away. Suddenly, she removed something from one of her arms, and a man with long silver hair, blue-green eyes, and a black trench coat with metal shoulder guards appeared. Then, as if out of thin air, a sword materialized in front of him. It looked like a blue-green fire, and he picked it up and gave it a single swing to see how it moved. It was only then that Neji realized it was a combat puppet. Since sand ninjas using combat puppets were among the most dangerous foes the Hyuga clan had ever faced in battle, many of the Hyuga who were watching the match were now worried about him, and for him, it only got worse. A huge shadow appeared to emerge from her feet as the human-looking puppet burst out, and the stadium appeared to be enveloped in darkness. Suddenly, another weapon materialized out of thin air, landing directly in front of Neji and severing the tip of his nose. When he looked down, he saw that it was a huge scythe. Then Neji saw a rather large mass emerge from the shadow, resembling a metal skeleton with a long, flowing black robe and hood. It reached out and picked up the scythe from the ground. In contrast to his most recent opponent, who was obviously over 8 feet tall and now looking down at him, Neji was easily 5 feet 9 inches tall. Its appearance was frightening enough, but he couldn't tell if it had eyes. Then he saw that the two battle puppets had chakra strings attached to them. As the larger puppet appeared to adopt a more aggressive stance toward its master, the long-haired puppet retreated into a defensive position to keep him safe. It didn't take long for the enormous creation to attack him and continue. He had assumed that something this size would be ungainly and slow, lacking the dexterity and grace to fight alongside someone like him. How mistaken he was. He could now see that she was sincere about getting revenge for Hinata's sake because the puppet was so elegant and nimble that she tried to rip him to pieces. As the judges watched the battle play out, they were, to put it mildly, impressed that the puppet was not solely using its scythe to fight him. With only a few fingers on her hands moving, Naruko was effortlessly manipulating the two puppets. It was obvious to them that she wasn't even trying at this point. However, the puppet masters in the hidden sand village were the only ones who could match her control skills. As the fight went on, the other competitors in the box were equally impressed. Kankuro was practically salivating over these puppets and had to concede that her statements were accurate in contrast to her puppets, which were incredibly simplistic. After noticing his intense concentration on the puppets, his sister, who was aware of his thoughts, told him, "You know you better close your mouth, right? If Gaara sees you drooling over his girl brother, our little brother might just kill you for it." This made Kankuro a little pale, recalling how his brother used to be. She was a true puppet master, but he still had a strong desire for those puppets and realized he still had a ways to go before he could learn how to move them properly. The techniques for defeating a puppet ninja had been taught to Neji long ago, but it seemed that this one was also aware of these flaws and had memorized them. Since he had just narrowly avoided the blow himself on one of his attempts to get past the puppet master's defenses, he had already witnessed the other puppet neatly chopping a tree in two whenever he attempted to take advantage of them. The Hyuga clan's alternate defenses had one major flaw, which he discovered too late. She was making him expend all of his chakra during the fight. They could only use it so many times before they would be exhausted and on the verge of death due to the high power costs and strain on their systems. When the big puppet's metal skeleton hand finally struck him in the chest, sending him flying back, he was unable to dodge it. He continued until he struck a tree, which caused the word to spiderweb from the damage. He coughed up some blood as he struck the dirt, realizing that the battle was over. Before anyone could stop her attack, the large puppet that resembled the Grim Reaper brought its scythe down on Neji's head, but it stopped just inches from impaling him in the face when Neji noticed that she was moving her fingers in a particular way. The long-haired one raised its sword to Neji's throat and said, "I should kill you, Yuro, but I know it's not what your cousin would want. You at least have a family. Don't throw that kind of gift away. Because if you do, I'll be back to finish you off. Do we have an understanding?" She approached him at this point, still in complete control of her creations. He gave her a nod of approval, and as she closed her puppets and approached the competitor box to await the next bout, the proctor pronounced her the winner of the match. Gaara was already waiting for his opponent in the arena area, but he had seen Naruko return up the stairs, indicating that he had not yet had any luck. Preparing for the next round was taking longer than anyone had anticipated due to the previous fight. Regretfully, the Uchiha was late, but the bout was rescheduled for after all of the fighters had engaged in combat. He was aware that this would force Naruko to face her sister after all. Wondering what would happen, he also made his way back up to the box. After Gaara had returned to the box himself, it didn't take long for the medic ninja to carry Neji off the field. Meanwhile, a number of Naruko's clones started to emerge from the ground. When Shikamaru saw her entering again, he spoke to her. "You were planning ahead, weren't you?" When Shikamaru realized who he had to fight, he suddenly went pale. She then gave him one of her charming smiles and said, "Of course I did, you lazy Buma Euro, and look whose turn it is to fight next." All he could think was, "Why me? I did nothing to deserve such mistreatment." Tamari landed on her enormous battle fan on the arena floor, and Naruko pushed him over the edge and into the arena floor below before he could even attempt to forfeit the match. The battle lasted for a long time and was a test of stamina, strategy, and intelligence that ended with Shikamaru's forfeiture. However, the judges concurred that both of them possessed the skills necessary to be Chunin in their match. Naturally, Naruko was the only other individual with the capacity to become a Chunin, as she had demonstrated extraordinary foresight in her match. In order to save energy for the upcoming fights, Kankuro promptly forfeited his own match against Shino. He was aware that he had a good chance of losing this exam and was okay with that. Kuretsuchi of the Hidden Stone and Chojuru of the Hidden Mist faced off in the following match. One of the most anticipated battles of the exam thus far had been this one. They went to the arena floor and stood opposite one another, waiting for the proctor to start the match. They both started moving frantically as soon as he put his hand down and said, "Begin." Chojuru unwrapped the two swords he carried on his back and launched a vicious attack on her, hurling water-style jutsus at her as if they were insignificant. She barely avoided one of them as it sliced a swath through the ground directly at her. She retaliated against him by hurling red-hot ash attacks at him. The two appear to be at a standstill as he alters the arena floor's design with every strike. After that, Kuretsuchi started making a quick series of hand gestures before slamming both of her hands into the ground and sending a real wave of hot lava straight at her opponent. As the two jutsus clashed in a spectacular display of distraction brought on by the elemental attacks colliding upon impact, he was able to summon an opposing wave of water. Kuretsuchi then made a sword for herself out of red-hot ash and charged Chojuru directly as the smoke and steam cleared from the arena floor, exposing them standing close to one another. Only a handful of the ninjas could keep up with the incredible speed at which the three swords clashed. It was made more difficult by the fact that both weapons used opposing elements, sending clogs of earth and steam flashing across the arena floor. In the end, the two unleashed their strongest blows in this form and collided, resulting in a steam and earth explosion that sent them both flying back several feet and landing on the ground motionless. As they were just waking up, the proctor checked on them both and discovered it had been a double knockout. He added, "Due to the last attack used by both challengers which resulted in them being unable to continue the match, I declare this match a draw. However, neither combat and will be allowed to advance further in the exams for the time being." The exam judges were genuinely impressed by this match as well and had to acknowledge that many newly minted Chunin would be taking the exam this year. The third Hokage was extremely pleased that Naruto had not killed Neji during their battle, and he was genuinely impressed by all of the fights he had witnessed thus far. He had to acknowledge that it demonstrated which of them was actually in charge in a battle. Unfortunately, he also had to deal with another rather annoying fact. Sasuke Uchiha and his sensei Kakashi Hitaki were notoriously late. People even went so far as to call Kakashi the King of Lateness, among other less flattering nicknames. He bowed to the village chief and said, "Lord Hokage, there is still no sign of Junin sensei Hitaki or his genin student who is set to compete in the exam, my lord. What are your orders? What shall be done?" As one of his ninja approached him with a very sour expression on his face. The elderly man rubbed his chin, contemplating how to handle the situation that was now erupting directly before him. Then he recalled that the Sound Ninja had been killed just a few days prior to the start of the finals, and that this unfortunate incident allowed for the possibility of a match. Looking into the fighter's box, he noticed that Karen had not yet competed and appeared extremely agitated. At the same time, he recalled that a rule states that if a competitor forfeits or dies, the opponent in question is still required to compete if they are present for the exam unless they declare a forfeit. Even if a fight has been postponed, the winner of the first round will still be placed in a matchup to guarantee a chance for promotion in the exams if the competitor is among the last to compete. The phony Kazekage then made the decision to voice his opinions. "Lord Hokage, many have come to see my son and your precious Uchiha have their battle. I believe it would be wise to postpone this fight for the moment. There must be some other candidates that can test their skills out. As it turns out there are. We still have one competitor who has not had an opportunity to fight so far. Luckily there are several rules that ensure that all competitors get a fair and equal chance to be promoted in the exams, so I believe I will announce it is to all who have gathered." To make his announcement, the elderly Hokage got up and moved to the edge of the cage booth. "I have a very special announcement to make, due to circumstances beyond our control as I stated earlier at the opening of the exams. One of our competitors is unable to battle in the exams final Sayuro. Luckily the other competitor who is here will still have their opportunity to fight in the exams. Now before that match can begin I must also inform you that due to the fact that Genin Sasuke Uchiha has not arrived yet does not mean that he has been disqualified. His match was postponed until after all the normal first round matches have been completed. This means if he does not arrive within 10 minutes of the end of this soon to be fought match, we will have no choice under the rules of the exam but to disqualify him. Now will Karen Uzumaki and her opponent Naruko Uzumaki please report to the arena for your match." Although Mei was genuinely pleased that Naruko had advanced this far in the examinations, she had a gut feeling that this would be the most difficult test she had ever faced, both mentally and physically. It came as no surprise that they both pulled out a weapon or tool to aid them in this battle as soon as they were on the arena grounds. Karen has a sword strapped to her side and a scroll that looks extremely complicated. Even though there was no wind in the arena at the moment, her sister produced a rather large black sword from one of the numerous seals on her body. The sword was almost as long as she was tall, and it had a white medical-like wrap on its hilt that seemed to flow behind her. The altercation between the two sisters had been building for a while and would likely be remembered for a very long time. The sounds of footsteps approaching between the two competitors in this upcoming match broke the deathly silence that pervaded the arena. Too many people in the audience had their attention so tightly focused on one another that it could be sliced with a knife. Karen took a moment to observe the minor adjustments to her sister's current clothing. She no longer had the two odd stick-like weapons on her back. Instead, she had what appeared to be new armor on her upper shoulders and back. The rather large sword she was holding was her only weapon at the moment, aside from the new armor. She was genuinely amazed that her sister could even pick something up like that. Since she was certain that she would win the upcoming fight and there was nothing her sister could do to prevent it, she didn't care what adjustments her sister had made for it. I won't have to disclose my new skills if everything goes according to plan. After all, how likely is it that my sister would have located the fabled lost sword belonging to the Uzumaki clan? This scroll is all I need to defeat her here. After giving her sister a once-over, Naruko noticed that she appeared more haughty and gave in, but she also appeared more assured of her skills. She was aware that this would not be a simple battle. She could only hope and pray that everything would work out. Although she didn't yet have a way to verify it, she had a gut feeling about what was in her sister's scroll. A group of men were waiting on the top of a nearby building, not far from the Hidden Leaf Village's Colosseum and also not far from the village's outer wall of protection. With the exception of one, all of them wore the Hidden Leaf's insignia on their heads, while the others wore the Hidden Mist Villages. With the sleeve flapping in the wind, the man's long red battle jacket appeared to be made of flexible armor that extended up to part of his face for protection. He had one arm inside the jacket, as if he were using it as a sling. A battle glove was gripping a jogger of some sort in his good arm. He wore sunglasses and had a scar that looked like it had closed one of his eyes. His face indicated that he was at least in his late 40s. A long, broadsword that appeared to have seen a lot of use in combat or during times of war rested on his back. "Master Orin, what is troubling you?" asked one of his older students as he approached him, focusing his attention on the arena and anticipating what would happen next. Orin looked at Zabuza and then said, "Our young student is about to engage in one of the biggest battles of her story." She knew that one day this part of her story would be told to the world. Today Zabuza is that day. Knowing full well that this would likely be the most dangerous fight in the exam thus far, the proctor stared down both young women. Watching them stare down each other, as two cages would do before their great battle started, was, to put it mildly, unnerving. These two sisters had a real all-for nothing fight in his arena, and he really did not want to be anywhere close to them. Fortunately, he had been given specific resources in case this altercation got out of control. In anticipation of the worst outcomes from their engagement in the arena below, the Anbu took up positions. He yelled for the game to start as soon as he noticed that they were in positions, and he leapt back as far away as he could to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Like lightning, the two sisters vanished and then resurfaced, their swords clashing and sending sparks flying as they ground their weapons together in an attempt to improve their position for the next attack. Ultimately, it didn't work, and the two parted ways to get some space and decide how to proceed. Without much delay, Karen revealed what was inside, tightly clutched like a death grip. In order to keep her sister occupied, she created her own little army of shadow clones. The clones assisted in throwing her into midair, where she spun wildly, spilling the contents of her scroll onto the arena floor below. Some of them even struck parts of the arena wall, forcing the proctor upward vertically in a way that was different from being struck or interfering with the match. Since clone after clone engaged her in fierce combat, Naruko had to show her sister some respect in our tactics. The majority of the clones she killed and fought were merely cannon fodder to keep her occupied while her sister carried out her plan. The arena appeared to be covered in three-pronged kunai, which were scattered across practically the whole arena floor, as she killed one of the final clones. She knew right away what jutsu was coming and what kind of kunai she was using. Not good. I might have prepared for this type of interaction in advance. However, Naruko was searching for a safe place to prepare her counterattack when she thought, there's no telling just how far she's going to take this was. Unfortunately for her, there was currently no safe place because her sister vanished in the yellow blur, then reappeared right on her sister's back. She then threw a hard haymaker into the back of her head, sending her hurtling into a more densely pocketed area of the kunai than she had previously been. Her sister reappeared before she had even landed, sending her flying back into the air with a strong uppercut to the jaw. When she reappeared, she delivered a powerful roundhouse kick to her sister's stomach, sending her hurtling into the dirt and ground. Many believed they heard her bones cracking under the force of the impact. Karen had assumed that her sister would be kept down for the remainder of the match by the slight beating she had inflicted. In an attempt to return to a more open area where the kunai were less numerous and she had a chance to defend herself, she saw her rising from a position. Karen didn't hesitate to launch another offensive. She decided to use one very special attack to end the match for good after her sister had taken even more damage from the subsequent round of blows. Following another haymaker to Naruko's face, Karen used the Flying Thunder God again, this time with the aid of one of her clones, to peer directly above her sister's back. As she screamed out the attack's name, a blue swirling sphere in her hand flew back towards her back, determined to end the match. Rasengan. A massive plume of smoke and debris filled the air as soon as the attack struck her, making it nearly impossible to see anything. Karen waited for the proctor to declare her the winner of the match with a broad smile on her face. She finally saw her sister standing straight and looking really angry as the smoke finally cleared. Then, just behind her sister, Karen saw that one of her kunai was still in place, so she used the jutsu again. However, the tip of her sister's sword was now resting against her throat as she arrived at her destination, seemingly too quickly for anyone to notice. Since no one in the village at the time was supposed to be able to have an effective counter to this jutsu, everything her mother had told her about it was suddenly called into question. However, for some reason, it was there. She turned her head at this point to get a good look at her sister from head to toe and saw that it had not been easy for her because she had numerous cuts and bruises, some of which were bleeding. But what she said next gave her a shiver and made her realize that, if she wanted to win, she might actually need to use those new skills. "You're not father. Don't get me wrong, you're very good at this jutsu and its execution, but for fighting someone like me in the cage of the hidden cloud village a Euro, you're just a slow sister. Maybe you've already forgotten what happened on the wave mission. If you'll recall correctly, I deactivated my gravity seals and became much faster than you all. Add on to that I learned a special speed technique that I can match your current level of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, and I would say 9 out of every 10 times you use it. Which means part of this fight has become a stalemate for us both." Naturally, Karen had heard tales of her father's battles with the leader of the Hidden Clouds, who was, of course, one of the few individuals who could confront her father and escape unscathed. She might not be able to master the jutsu in a month, her mother had warned her. However, there had been enough time to gain the self-assurance necessary to employ it successfully enough in battle. In an attempt to surprise her sister, she used the jutsu again, trying to move even faster than before. She was startled to see her sister appear exactly where she was expected to be, landing a flying roundhouse kick that was aimed directly at her chest. Without time to defend herself, she was hurled straight to the ground, upsetting numerous seals and rendering them unusable for the battle. Looking at what had been done, she saw that her attack strategy had flaws and that the same strategies that had helped her win the battle early in the match were no longer effective. Karen leveled her eyes on her sister and readied herself for a fresh strategy in the fight, spitting her own blood out of her mouth for the first time during the match. The stadium stands were now bustling with activity and excitement about the matches thus far, and the main topic of conversation for everyone in attendance a Euro, from the wealthiest man to the daimyos of the land itself to the average citizen a Euro, was the ongoing fight. The judges were certain that these two would advance to the next round regardless of the circumstances. As he supported Karen in her victory over her sister, Kiba stood next to his teammate Hinata. On top of his head, his partner Akamaru watched the battle, wondering what would happen next. As each blow was delivered to Naruko's body, he applauded, as it appeared that she was unable to adequately defend herself against such assaults. "Kiba, you're not being very nice to her. What problem do you have with her anyways?" was the only way Hinata could finally express her feelings to him about this. "What problem? Well, first of all, she kicked my ass, Hinata, and humiliated me in front of everyone including you. As well as the fact that she's supposed to be a part of this village and she's not. She's basically a traitor to her own home village. That's my problem with her. Besides, there's no way she'll win this fight, Hinata." Only then did he realize that his teammate's eyes had never left the arena floor. He turned around to witness the abrupt reversal and realized that the fight had gained a new level of intensity. Hinata made the decision to massage it. "This fight is so not over, Kiba." Karen now understood that her sister was entirely correct when she said that if nothing changed quickly, the conflict might come to a standstill. She concluded that it was time to put her new skills to use because she had been putting it off for far too long already. Depending on how hard and how much power she used in the upcoming battle, her mother had warned her that the aftereffects of using this technique could be extremely exhausting. Hopefully, she would only require stage 1. However, she crossed her fingers because she had no idea what small pranks her sister might be planning right now. Her mother had completely altered the snake's curse seal, and the soul fragment had been sent to the next world. However, it also meant that without something to restructure it, the seal would become somewhat unstable at that point. Fortunately, her mother had one of the 2 legendary swords of the Uzumaki clan and was ready for this eventuality. 2 of their strongest ancestors, known as the Soul Reapers on one side and the Hollows on the other, were said to have been touched by the 2 manifestations of death itself and were holding the swords. At this point, only the Hollow's sword was left. Over time, the clan had lost the other, along with its power and curse. Karen was granted the abilities of her ancestor to use in combat because the Sword of Hollows, as it had come to be known, voluntarily accepted her as its new wielder. However, it had warned her that there would be costs later, and she had voluntarily accepted them, understanding that she wouldn't die, but she also wouldn't be participating in any fights anytime soon after this. Karen was overcome by a powerful blue and black energy that created a sense of pressure that permeated the entire arena, even up in the stands, and that everyone could feel. This type of feeling was only familiar to those who had experienced Killer Instinct, or KI as it was known. With the exception of what appeared to be a white bone jaw on the side of her face and a more feral appearance, she did not appear to change much in appearance as the energy vanished. She seemed to vanish from her spot and reappear directly in front of her sister, who was still in disbelief over what she had just witnessed, indicating that she was also much faster now. When Karen's fist struck Naruko's face, it was so loud and swift that everyone in the arena and the stands could hear it. After that, she was launched into the air and spun around before collapsing so hard that she skipped across the lake like a pebble and eventually rested for a few feet before managing to straighten herself out. After giving her sister a strong roundhouse kick to the back of her head, Karen flipped her straight into a tree and proceeded to use another haymaker. By quickly activating the plates of her armor that activated the chakra shields, Naruko was able to counter to a certain extent this time. The extent of the damage caused by the two sisters' fight thus far to the arena floor below astounded the onlookers. Karen took a step back to appreciate her work thus far and was surprised to see her sister standing there. The plates on her armor had nearly disappeared due to the below, and she now understood that those items had prevented her from being attacked by the Rasengan earlier. Karen made the decision to attempt to force her sister to forfeit the match because she once again felt that it was hers. "You can barely stand up, sister. I think it would be wise if you forfeited this match right now, as I haven't even used all of my power yet." She chose to go above and beyond rather than just fitting the match as Karen had requested. She had, after all, been more ready for this kind of situation than her sister would ever realize. Naruko raised his sword vertically, then lowered it forward until it was aimed straight at Karen. As she screamed out the word, the hill wrap started to wrap around her arm while she was holding the sword in one hand and her arm in the other. Bankai. A sudden burst of energy and smoke filled the arena floor, and while most of the smoke appeared to be clear, it was pushed away by the movement of the jet black blade with the red hilt and the small chain. Her outfit also completely changed, and she now wore a determined expression. Tense Zanjetsu. A group of Anbu were waiting for the invasion to start so they could perform their duties in one of the numerous private observation booths dotted throughout the Konoha's Coliseum. Kushina Uzumaki, who had been sent here to assist in battling the invasion when it began, was seated with them. She was also receiving a front-row seat to the tests. She initially believed that when her daughter Karen faced her sister, she would be ready and unopposed. She now understands how foolish it was to believe that would never happen and how completely incorrect she was. For the first time in nearly a century, she realized that the Uzumaki clan would once again engage in combat with the two swords of death and their bearers. Furthermore, if Naruko had discovered the missing sword, she would have also conquered its alleged curse. Once again, the arena had fallen nearly silent due to the incredible power unleashed by the Bankai move. To put it mildly, Karen was unimpressed, failing to recognize the extent of the danger that now existed between them and how much more difficult her battle had become. "So you have a move that makes a lot of smoke, I'm really scared." No, was the only way she could have made it worse. Naruko was directly on top of her, swinging her sword forward and attempting to sever her before she could finish speaking. She was able to grab the sword with her bare hands thanks to her quick reflexes, but she could feel it severing her palm. When she realized that this move wasn't a smoke and mirrors ploy, her eyes widened. "That isn't feasible. Right now, my skin ought to be as tough as steel. Then why in the world did her sword cut me that way? Is it possible?" Karen was taken by surprise when her sister vanished again and then reappeared right behind her, striking her across the back. Blood flew into the air. She barely had time to put her hands in front of her face before the wave struck her squarely in the face, and when she turned on her heels, she saw her sister and her sword swinging downward, sending the red and black mass of chakra straight into her face and chest. Due to the sheer force of the impact, Karen flew straight through a tree and into the arena wall. Her chest was fairly badly cut, and blood was now streaming from it as she emerged from the wall's debris. It was only now that she realized how much more she would need to do to win this battle. "I might as well go all the way since I've already come this far. Later on, it will hurt, but I'll get through it." Then, as the ground started to tremble and some audience members started having trouble breathing due to the pressure that was now all around them, Karen took the sword off her side and put her hand on the middle of the blade, which was glowing blue with energy. Naruko tried to stop her after realizing what she was doing, saying, "No, you don't know what you're doing, Karen." However, her cries were ignored as she completed her task and let everyone hear her scream. A.N. The Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny soundtrack's song Beelzebub starts playing now. You can listen to the song and some of the film on YouTube. Grind Pantera. When the energy release subsided and it became apparent that she had changed drastically, she now looked more like a cat, with her hands clawed, her hair flowing back, and her feet actually resembling paws. She even wore a tail. As soon as the smoke cleared, she let our war begin, and then she screamed, "I am complete." To see if there was someone exactly like her and possibly even more powerful scared the living daylights out of them both, so much so that they made it known audibly to the entire arena. The two bodyguards directly behind Mei raised their hands and began pointing at the arena floor below, and they suddenly turned deathly pale as they remembered when Naruko had learned to control her sword's abilities and what that entailed. Fuck. Naruko said the same thing down in the arena at the same time, and she had to acknowledge that this is much more difficult for her. Then, Karen told her sister aloud, "Yes, you are fucked. You're out of luck. I'm going to kick your ass now that I'm complete. You little bitch, you're coming home. I'm coming, and you can't stop me anymore." Then Karen abruptly vanished and reappeared in front of her sister in mid-punch, giving the impression of an afterimage to everyone in the arena, including up in the cage's booth. The punch that followed sent Naruko flying straight up into the air in front of the competitor's box as Karen fired off a strange ball of red energy from her hand directly at her sister, whom she called a Sero. Naruko realized that with her current power level, the people in the box would not survive, and that while she could avoid it, it would not be the best course of action at that moment. She stuck it up and unleashed her final trump card when using Zangetsu's power, which some have dubbed the Curse of the Sword, meaning that anyone who wielded it would have to face it once in their lifetime at Euro. Either defeat and control it, or it would destroy you and consume your soul. Karen immediately believed that she had won the match when the Sero struck Naruko dead on, but instead she saw her attack split into and fly straight into the arena's adjacent walls. When the smoke from the attack cleared, Karen got a good look at her sister's face and saw that it had changed. It now had a mask in the shape of a skull with red lines running along the sides in a distinctive pattern. However, it was her eyes that captured the attention of everyone watching, not just her. Her iris was jet black, and her iris was blood red with a slit. There was only one thought on Karen's mind when she suddenly realized that her sister was standing in midair in front of the box containing the remaining combat runs for the exam, her eyes narrowing dangerously at her as her sister brought the sword up defensively. Oshish. T. When Naruko's reappeared right in front of her sister, she barely ducked the sword strike with the blades on her arms before bringing her other arm and lady gently across the back of the black blade and saying, "Getsuga Tenshou." When it finally subsided, Karen had numerous more cuts and burns all over her body and was breathing heavily after realizing that the battle was harder than they had initially thought. The two sisters then seemed to have been engulfed by a wave of energy that was red and black and tore apart the arena floor like nothing else had. The fact that both of them were bleeding heavily by this point and were obviously showing signs of exhaustion made many in the audience think that this was more of a cage fight than a battle for a Chunin position. They were also afraid that the village leaders would attend the match the following evening. Fortunately, there was no seating in this area of the arena, so no one would be harmed by the incoming blow. As Karen flew down, it struck her sister in the chest, and at the same moment, the blade from Naruko's struck her as well, cutting just beneath her rib cage on her side before hitting the wall. One of the attacks Karen sent had damaged a rather insignificant portion of Naruko's face. Many people could now be heard screaming in fear for their lives as the entire section of the arena wall exploded outwards, engulfing parts of the arena in a shower of smoke and debris. Orochimaru, still disguised as the cage, was completely stunned by what he had just witnessed, and he was aware that Naruko had been his old partner Sasori's hidden apprentice, and that it was she who had emitted that agonizing and mournful cry of anguish. He also knew that the vixen had been a major obstacle in many of his best plans to try to overthrow the Hidden Leaf Village. Up in the cage booth, everyone was so wide-eyed that it appeared as though they had pupils at all, with sweat trickling down the sides of their heads. Only after returning from a mission did Kakashi Hitaki discover that the girl and the vixen were one and the same, and all he could do was hope that she would be killed in the upcoming invasion. He and the other two cages were thinking about these things when they realized the exam proctor was in their booth at the moment. "What the hell are you doing up here?" Mei asked after giving him a quick once over. "This has gotten out of control, so the newbie is attempting to stop them." He turned to face them, and they could see that he was completely terrified and pale white. "Are you out of your fucking mind? You expect me to stop them, but I'm not even close to your level. I want to live past today because you guys aren't paying me enough for that. Thank you very much." One of the first to fully regain consciousness, the third Hokage said, "Get as many structural seals as you can and shield seals to protect the people in the stands right now," as he snapped his fingers to grab one of his anbu. "Lord Hokage, do you really believe that both of them will pose such a threat?" Her sister Karen, not Naruko, is a completely different matter. Like her sister's attacks, The arena was confined to her opponent when she launched that attack directly at Naruto, not carrying the threat that she would inflict any damage on the other fighters. Put them in place immediately, while it's still possible. They saw Karen putting her claws down on Naruto's sword in a blatant power struggle to see who could resist the most as the Anbu took their positions. Naruto then told them, "Get the seals in place right now and get the hell out of here." The wall then fell directly on top of Naruto, who had to push the rest of the wall off her body, leaving only a small piece of the mask on her face as she stood up and stared down her sister. Karen was beginning to feel the effects of prolonged use of her ability, and she knew that it would soon shut down completely until she was healed. Karen then managed to overpower her sister just enough to give her a powerful spin kick that sent her flying into another tree and straight through it into the wall. She was still learning to control this new power and all of its urges and abilities, and the worst part was that her vision began to blur. Her mother had warned her that this was one of the warning signs that she might have just a minute left before it shut down on her. There was always a limited amount of time to use this power during the first few uses, but the more practice you got, the better off you would be in the long run. She felt that her sister was more experienced in these types of battles and could last far longer than she could. All she had left was strength and speed, which she hoped would be enough to win the fight. She tried to recall that most of her attacks in this form were not coming to her, and she took off in a fast-paced sprint to take her sister out once and for all, yelling, and she succeeded. Her sister only looked up at the cage booth, reached up with her hand, and caught Karen's hand as if it were nothing, squeezing it and obviously breaking bones in the process. "Sorry Karen, but I can't take any more damage from you," her sister said as she turned her head and saw those eyes staring back at her as the mask started to reform onto her face. "You might be able to defeat me someday, but not right now." She brought the sword down on both sisters' chests while she was holding her sister's hand. This caused another Tenshou to attack her at close range, causing blood to flow directly into the arena's air. She still held the sword in her hands, and after a glance at her sister, it was evident that she had no intention of giving up despite what had just happened. At that moment, Karen's power had reached its limits, and the safety switch that had kept her safe and alive returned to the blade until she was well enough to call upon it again. Some of the more serious wounds she had received in the battle had disappeared, or were more like bruises, while others still remained dangerous and were still leaking blood. The mask and the battle cloak disappeared as she said, "Thanks Sanjetsu, I can take it from here." She then resealed the sword in its unique seal on her body and assumed fighting stance, transforming it back into the massive weapon with the hilt wrap that Karen had seen at the beginning of their battle. Karen recklessly charged her sister, swinging her like it was nothing more than a twig, despite the fact that she was in excruciating pain. Naruto managed to avoid every attack that was directed at her and eventually caught her sister's arm holding the sword, telling her, "That's enough, Karen. This must end. I can't and won't stop. You simply left us one day and never returned. We searched Fire Country in search of you. Naruto, you don't realize what you did to us. You're returning to us, even if it means killing me." As her sister screamed in agony and showed no signs of stopping the match anytime soon, Naruto suddenly threw her over her back into some of the rubble. She then used her chakra strings to attach herself to her sister, sending her flying into the wall with such force that she was rendered unconscious. It took nearly a minute for the proctor to return to the arena floor, and he picked up a stick and walked slowly toward Karen, poking her a few times to make sure she was A, still alive, and B, unconscious. He then declared Naruto the winner of the match, and they both watched as the medical ninja carried Karen off the field because she needed immediate medical attention. After taking out a small medical kit, Naruto applied a single seal to her neck, which started to heal some of her wounds considerably more quickly than before and also replenished some of her chakra. Junin sensei Kakashi Hitaki and his genin student Sasuke Uchiha had finally arrived to take the exams when a lot of wind and leaves started to blow in what appeared to be a tornado and eventually vanished from the arena floor. After ignoring the presence of Kakashi Hitaki and his pupil Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto approached her sister and, after removing one of her medical seals, slapped it on her head, causing many of the wounds to heal instantly. At this point, Kakashi and Sasuke approached the sisters and overheard their conversation, which shocked Karen because she had never thought her sister would ever do her any good. "You healed me, but why? It was the proper course of action. Additionally, you must be able to protect yourself from impending danger. I remember what happened that night, even though you might not. And don't assume that I found this little fight amusing, particularly when we entered the section of the stadium's wall that is no longer there. A man with what's on the horizon, you'll see." As Naruto turned to leave, she saw the wide eyes of Sasuke and Kakashi, who were standing no more than 2 feet away, and realized that the 2 young women were responsible for all of the damage. Naruto approached Gaara, who had just entered the arena, and said, "Gaara, don't take him lightly. I have previously witnessed Uchiha clan members in action. And keep in mind that he was harmed by the snake. On that subject, however, kick his ass. Don't worry, Vixen, he said, grinning at her. I assume he is aware of that jutsu, and I don't intend to treat him lightly. I believe so. Given his sensei, I would say he is aware of it and has been figuring out how to get past your barriers. Keep them out. I don't think he will use this flight to prove my existence. Fortunately, I no longer regard the one story as my mother. However, I am aware that her essence shields me in this sand that I am in charge of. You should go up there and take a short break. Don't miss this fight, please. As she walked away and up the stairs to the fighter's box to watch her old friend fight his long, overdue battle, she shook her hips and smiled at him. Kakashi joined her at that moment, walking up beside her and saying, "You didn't have to go that far in your fight, did you? Hitaki, were you present? Did you notice the extent to which she was prepared to go? You don't know what happened, so don't tell me how far I've come." When Naruto went all out, Gaara had to acknowledge that they couldn't do much to stop her, which is likely why he had started to fall in love with her and wouldn't have it any other way. Sasuke was nothing in comparison to Naruto and his sister, and the Uchiha were attempting to intimidate him by staring him down, but it had no effect whatsoever on him, especially after he had once angered both of them. May the next match between Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara of the Desert begin, the proctor said, standing between them and giving them the rundown before speaking loudly enough for everyone in the arena to hear. The proctor was shocked to see that the very ground he stood on turned into the sand ninja's weapon as it attempted to cut him down and crush him, but he quickly leapt back out of the way as Gaara's sand shot out at Sasuke, who narrowly avoided the attack. Even with his Sharingan active, Sasuke was unable to stay ahead of the sands and could not anticipate every move as it attempted to kill him more and more, forcing him to rely more on the speed techniques he had learned from his sensei in order to avoid Gaara's grasp. He had not yet given him a reason to go all out, so Gaara remained exactly where he was at the start of the match, waiting for the Uchiha to make a move. As he considered it, the match was starting to get a little dull until the Uchiha managed to get up on the wall rather high and make a number of hand signals. As the sand grew more dangerous, looking a euro, almost as if it were alive and waiting for its victim to attack a euro, Gaara switched to a more loose fighting style. So now you're taking this seriously, it's about time. Then, like a gunshot, Sasuke launched himself straight at Gaara's chest, avoiding several of the sand tentacles that tried to snare him or crush them in their grasp while slicing through a few more, which caused him to slow down significantly as he continued toward his target. In order to prepare for his opponent's arrival, Gaara then made a staff out of the stone, hard earth surrounding him, spinning it around a few times to get a feel for its length and weight. Then Sasuke yelled out the name of his attack, Shiryo Ri. As he attempted to drive it home into Gaara's for good measure, the wall of earth suddenly materialized out of the ground and stood in front of him like an impenetrable wall. He was able to cut through the majority of it but was stopped and pulled his arm out without any damage, and the wall soon collapsed as Gaara charged directly at it. He could now understand why the Vixen were so drawn to this ninja because he was genuinely strong. Sasuke then succeeded in drawing a sword, and they started exchanging blows in a display of their prowess for everyone to witness. Occasionally, one of the sand's tentacles would try to attack Sasuke, making him more defensive and possibly giving him fewer and fewer opportunities to attack his opponent. Despite Sasuke's improvement over the course of the month, he was still in some ways inferior to Gaara. One of the tentacles caught him and dragged him into the air, while others sprang up and swallowed him. The only thing he heard Gaara say was, "Sand coffin." He said it with a smile on his face. After lighting the match for a sufficient amount of time, Orochimaru gave the signal, and his bodyguards immediately acted without realizing the sequence of events it had started. Hundreds of sound ninjas invaded the area and attacked the warriors of the leaf as the explosion rocked the cage box and feathers appeared to be falling from the sky, suggesting the use of a genjutsu upon the stadium. His fallen student, still dressed as the Kazekage, had the third Hokage in his grasp. He then threw the skin and veil covering his face to the ground so that everyone could see it. The snake Sannin found himself flying forward and away from his former teacher, leaving Mei and her bodyguards, who had already been positioned to assist the elderly man, helpless. The enigmatic savior, who turned out to be none other than Orin, the first of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, assisted the Hokage to his feet. As he removed his robes to show his battle armor, which showed that he had been prepared for this invasion the entire time, the Hokage nodded and smiled at him. The Hokage and Mizukage accompanied Orin in confronting the cunning Sannin, who had not anticipated this type of confrontation, but fortunately for him, he always had a surprise in store. Since attacking the leaf ninjas had been the original plan, the sand ninjas soon uncovered themselves and started attacking the sound ninjas instead, which completely shocked the sound ninjas. He held Sasuke in his sand, searching for a place to drop him, but when he finally spotted the proctor, he threw Sasuke over to him and started attacking his opponents. Gaara watched as his brother and sister leapt alongside him to act as his protection just in case there were far too many sound ninjas that would engage them. Sasuke immediately stood up and started to scan the arena in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that someone would dare to attack his house. He even witnessed his mother defeating opponents as if they were insignificant. Finally, the proctor had to draw Sasuke's attention in order to give him instructions. It appears that the exams are over. The Sound Village is attacking our village. For your assignment, report right away to your Junin-sensei and protect your house. Without further prodding, Sasuke took off to locate Kakashi and his comrades and fight off this invasion. A group of highly skilled sound ninjas surrounded him before he could take 2 steps. Their leader had given them a very special mission: to capture Sasuke alive and unharmed. However, the vixen herself killed them before they could even attempt to attack him, and the subsequent group of sound ninjas who saw her recalled their master's orders to kill her. Her chakra strings wrapped around each of their necks as they charged her, and she abruptly withdrew her hand and directed her wind element into the strings, which then proceeded to sever their heads from their bodies. At this point, Elder Chio of the Sand Village approached her and said, "You've had some free time, I see." She then sent them at another group of enemy ninjas, who were treated similarly and were sliced to pieces in her wake. I never would have imagined using wind chakra in that way. But I can see that it works really well. Are you willing to go all out and demonstrate your skill with those puppets you made for me? Saying, "Do you think you can keep up with this young prankster?" Naruto smiled at her surrogate grandmother. "Young one, I believe I can. Show me what you got." At this precise moment, Haku and Chojuru both positioned themselves defensively to shield their friends, who were going to demonstrate the fighting prowess of a true puppet ninja. Each of them unlocked a set of puppets from their seals and launched a vicious attack on their opponents, with Chio unleashing 2 puppets that resembled her son and daughter. In which proceeded to slaughter sound ninjas as if they were insignificant. One of the sound ninjas would live to tell his story of what he'd witnessed that day, and he would always remember the puppet's name of Sephiroth, the Nightmare. Naruto unleashed 3 puppets, the first of which was Masamune, who had been seen in her battle with Neji, who wielded her sword. The puppet looked completely human, down to the cruel and menacing facial expressions, which were further accentuated by the light wind blowing through this section of the arena, which blew its hair lightly. A.N. FF7 Advent Children's Song, One Winged Angel, begins to play in the background. Sephiroth started using a single sword swing to dispatch whole groups of enemy ninjas. The next puppet that sent shivers down their spines was a metal skeleton-like figure with red glowing eyes that moved like a man. Unlike most puppets, which were made of wood, this one was made of a high-grade, durable metal that was stronger than steel. The metal nightmare then proceeded to pick up a piece of debris that no normal man could even attempt to lift and used it like a baseball bat to send an enemy flying straight into the wall. Without even thinking, it walked up and impaled the enemy ninja on this piece of debris. The final puppet was her most recent creation, the Grim Reaper, which was by far the biggest and most deadly to date. It proceeded to cut down enemies one by one, grabbing their faces with one of its hands before the Reaper pulled what appeared to be the man's soul out of his body and into a small stone embedded in its hand. Then, like lightning, it cut them down, released his soul, and grabbed another to repeat the process. Orochimaru had been fighting the Cage Mei and his former teacher for a while now with no progress at all, and any attempt to escape had also been thwarted by the strange swordsmen who seemed fearful of him and unable to leave, despite the fact that they looked crippled and incapable of fighting. When Snake Sanin finally had enough, he ordered bodyguards to erect a barrier so that no one could stop him from killing his old sensei for good. He knew how to do it. The barrier's rise startled all 3 of his opponents, but they were even more shocked when they saw 3 coffins a euro, each bearing the number a euro, emerge from the earth. "It's the Imperial World Resurrection Jutsu," Sarutobi yelled to his allies as soon as he recognized the jutsu. "Stop the 4th coffin from rising at all costs, or we've already lost the fight." It was too late to stop the other 2, but Mei and Sarutobi both launched their best jutsus to strike the coffin squarely and prevent it from rising. The 1st and 2nd Hokages of the Hidden Leaf Village were standing in front of them, prepared for battle, as the lids quickly dropped. This was going to be a fierce battle, and Mei was not happy at the moment because she knew a little bit about the Imperial World Resurrection Jutsu, such as how difficult it was to kill them or simply seal them up. When the first 2 Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village emerge from their coffins and start to survey the area to which they have been called, they both notice the enormous purple barrier that keeps the Anbu from entering to assist them in battling the evil snake and his thirst for vengeance. They noticed how much time had gone by when they turned to face Sarutobi, and the first one couldn't resist making fun of his former pupil, saying, "You little monkey, you've aged so much." I assume that we are here to fight you because of the pale ass behind us? I'm afraid so, and if you lived this long, you would also be elderly. I assure you that you will be released from this jutsu, he told his former instructors. Oren gave them a nod, freed his arm from inside his coat, removed the sword from his back, and positioned himself on a new battle stand. They saw Orochimaru approach from behind and ram two kunai into the back of their skulls, depriving them of nearly all of their free will. After swiftly passing through a series of hand seals, the first Hokage slammed his hands into the arena's roof that had survived the previous battles. Immediately after, a massive forest with numerous trees grew inside the purple barrier, making it slightly harder to see what was happening inside. After that, Mei thought of a way to deal with the two resurrected cages. It would be extremely challenging, but if she succeeded, she might also be able to defeat the Snake Sanin. Mei then noticed that Team Mist and their sensei Zabuza were fighting fiercely out of the corner of her eye and that they were going to have one of their fervent walks through the village, where they would kill the bad guys as they encountered them. Then it occurred to her that her lava release might be able to hold the first and second Hokages until they could be freed from this jutsu, and that her second release might also slow down the two Hokages and potentially kill Orochimaru or seriously injure him for the rest of his life. When Sarutobi saw the expression on Mei's face, he realized that she might have a plan that could work, even though it would cost him dearly. He had already called upon his ally, the Monkey King, who had transformed into a powerful diamond staff to fight his fallen student. Then he addressed his supporters, saying, "We must either kill my dead student or seal their souls away. They will regenerate, so killing them will only temporarily slow them down. Because it requires the sacrifice of a living person to function, there is a reason it is prohibited. Its weaknesses include the possibility that the jutsu will be broken if the soul is able to find peace and return to rest. The other is that the reanimated souls will only be on this planet for a brief period of time if the caster is killed. Good work, little monkey. The other is that we can still warn you about what we are going to do, even though we do not have control of our bodies," the second Hokage said, grinning at his former pupil. "And I think he's going to force us to attack you. It's unfortunate that you three won't live past this day and that these two will realize they had a hand in destroying their own home village that they helped create," the Snake Sanin said, grinning twistedly at them. "I've given my man very specific instructions to kill that little bitch Naruko, just so you know, sensei. I don't think she'll make it through this fight." Only then did he notice the smile on the Mizukages and his sensei's faces and realize that they knew something he didn't. "Please have your pitiful ninja kill her," Mei told him. "If you don't believe me, just look to your right into the arena for yourself. The Vixen and her team are currently wiping out your man as we speak." As the Sand Ninjas continued to fight and kill his men, the Snake Sanin looked over and realized that his plans had been foiled. Then he saw Team Mist simply moving through the arena toward one of his exits, slaying his men one by one. "What the devil?" Orochimaru declared aloud for everyone to hear. "This is a war, and they're acting like it doesn't exist to them. Hell, it looks like they're just taking a walk." According to his own assessment, the first Hokage said, "It looks like an enthusiastic walk to me." Mei chose to add her own thoughts, saying, "To be more specific, it was a very enthusiastic walk. When they're done with your man, you pale bastard, you'll be lucky if you have a village left." Being the most enraged he had ever been, Orochimaru made the decision to eliminate them, killing Naruko for good before she killed him. "Kill them now." The two resurrected cages charged into the battle after he said this. "This is going to be a little harder than I thought, but not impossible." Oren successfully blocked the first Hokage's initial attack and retaliated by cutting the undead cage in two with one of his own, but it didn't last long because the cage's body regenerated directly in front of Oren. The swordsman was able to block the attack again, but the first Hokage was able to re-engage Oren more quickly than he had anticipated. The two then engaged in combat with such intensity that at times they were only blurs to the Anbu, waiting to help their leader in their hour of need. Sarutobi, who was busy fighting his second teacher and cage, was grateful that the man did not have his legendary sword with him during this battle, which was already intense enough for him because he knew that his old teacher was not holding back at all, and he was grateful that he did not have to face the first Hokage as well. Mei was waiting for her chance to defeat the two undead cages and then the snake. Orochimaru brought his sword, sometimes called the grass cutter, up over his head and then down to try to cut his old sensei in two, but the sword was easily blocked by his old sensei's staff, and he then had to dodge an attack from the undead cage. Unfortunately for him, his own fallen student had picked this exact moment to go in for the kill and wasted no time in doing so. But before the snake could strike, he discovered that a face he had not expected to oppose him had blocked it. Tayuya, one of his personal bodyguards, had created a huge hole in the barrier that prevented the Anbu from helping them in this fight. The rage on his face as he looked down at her was horrifying, but she stood her ground and protected the elderly man as Naruto had summoned him. Tayuya was fortunate to be spared from the snake's influence and to have part of the seal on the back of her neck that allowed him to control her destroyed, along with the soul fragment that had previously been there. Orochimaru had been unaware that Tayuya had been a spy for the Vixen in the Hidden Mist village, as they had sought his death. Mei then took a chance and let loose her lava release on the first Hokage, who was unable to move quickly enough to avoid the attack. Orin, who had managed to keep him in place and jump out of the way of the attack just in time, thanks to the Imperial World Resurrection Jutsu, continued to regenerate as the lava cooled and hardened. He wore a smile on his face as his body tried to break free from the volcanic rock, enjoying the accomplishment of stopping him in this way, and hoped that his brother would be able to do the same. The four of them engaged the snake Sannin in an attempt to kill him once and for all, and Mei swiftly ran forward as Orin assisted her in leaping high into the air and straight over the second Hokage, unleashing her bloodline down upon him and trapping him in the cooling rock. As the battle went on, 3 of his opponents leapt back as the Mizukage used her second bloodline against the snake. Before Orochimaru could pull away or counterattack, the Mizukage struck him in the head, consuming both of his arms and a portion of his right leg. His arm damage was so severe that he was unable to use his abilities or jutsu to repair it, and his leg hurt like hell. He knew that battle was over, and it appeared that his war against the Hidden Leaf was as well. Orochimaru, Lord, as he showed up at his master's side with the other 2 Sound 4 members prepared to engage in a full-on battle, one of his steadfast bodyguards uttered those words. But Orochimaru knew that fighting them was suicide and that it was time to leave the village. He also knew that if he wanted to get this body to work again, he would need his old teammates' help. The invasion is over, we must retreat, he said. Tayuya, you will pay for betraying me. This isn't over yet. Take note of what I say. You pedophile, don't wager on it. I lost everything because of you, she told him. This is just retaliation, and I hope the Vixen kills you soon. Naruto had already sealed her puppets and unleashed 2 very special swords on her enemies. These swords resembled the legendary sword of the second Hokage, but they were made of pure energy and could cut through nearly anything. As she took them down one by one, the Sound Ninjas were currently learning this the hard way. Her sensei Zabuza was obviously having a great time, and he turned to them and said, "Come on you guys, this is awesome. Come on, it will be fun to see who can get the most bodies." After observing his 2 female teammates exchange glances, Shojuru heard Haku finally utter the words, "All right, the girls will take out some of the rotten sound bastards. It can't be that enjoyable." After the 2 of them killed a few of the ninjas, their attitudes seemed to shift to one of pleasure, which made Shojuru terrified and forced him to hide his family's valuables. He heard them both say simultaneously, "Oh, fuck the hell yes." A.N. When Rob Zombie begins to play, the song feels so numb. The blood that flew up into the air from their combined assault was nothing to laugh about as the body parts hit the ground one after another. The 2 girls even went so far as to cut an enemy ninja each in 2 from the groin to the top of their heads. They took off like bats out of hell, killing almost every enemy ninja that stood in their way. When they were done, Shojuru simply had to express his thoughts, while nearly every man had their hands over their crotches and was praying to God. The Black fucking Sabbath is so sweet. They all turned to see 2 men in a group of highly skilled sound ninjas approaching them. "I'm so glad they're on our side, Euro. Who the hell are they?" they asked. Naruto sees the group and instantly identifies the 2 leaders, saying, "Look at this. I thought this place smelled like hypocrisy. Look at this little Timmy stuck to your crotches. If it's not the snake's fuck buddy Kabuto, the Catholic priest wants to be Mizuki. Advancement. Oh, and look what we have here, a pathetic little bitch who doesn't have a family anymore," said Mizuki, who was so furious that she decided to test his ability to enrage her. "We're going to have a great time killing." She responded, yeah, give me a minute," when Shojuru attempted to get her attention. "Do you really believe that you can handle all of us at this time and still be alive? Since I'm going to chop off your ass." However, a number of sound ninjas ran through, screaming things like that, before anyone could take any action. "Go back. Get away. Let's leave this place immediately." Ah. Just in front of Kabuto and Mizuki, one of the men halted and said, "Lord Orochimaru has ordered an immediate retreat. We must move now that the cages are en route to us." Only then did the 2 men realize the war was won, but they followed orders and left the scene with rather hateful expressions on their faces. Inside the 3rd Hokage's office, Naruto stood beside her teammates and friends, who were all present when they were promoted to the rank of Chunin. Among them were Naruto, her teammate Chojuru, Kuretsuchi from the Hidden Stone Village, Gaara and his sister Tamari from the Sand Village, and Shikamaru. The only person who declined to present was Karen, Naruto's sister, who has also been promoted but is currently still in the hospital and won't be expected to leave for at least another week. Mei herself stood next to the Hokage and watched with a smile on her face, while Haku, Zabuza, and Orin went off to the side and proudly watched the ceremony. The Hokage instructed Jiraiya and Shio to wait to the side of the room so he could speak with them and a particular young woman present. Jiraiya gestured for Team Mist to remain behind as they left the room, and Naruto realized that this was not going to work out well at all. The team approached and stood in front of the Hokage and Mizukage, and the elderly man said, "First of all, I would like to congratulate you both on your promotion to Chunin. Additionally, Naruto, I have a very special mission for you." This confused Naruto a little, so he asked, "What kind of mission, old man?" The old Hokage simply grinned and laughed at her attitude, which left Ao a little perplexed. Ao was shocked to hear her speak to someone like this, especially a Kage. "Naruto, I've realized that I can no longer carry out the responsibilities of his office to the best of my abilities. The altercation with my former pupil served as yet another reminder of how far things have progressed and how nearly I lost that battle. And if Mei and Sir Orin hadn't been here, I would have. I'm probably only going to be able to do this for another year before the council steps in and begins the process of finding a new Hokage. Danzo has his own responsibilities for not being able to be named the next in line, so it's impossible to predict who they will choose. Additionally, we are both fairly elderly, but Tsunade, my other student, has the experience and ancestry to succeed me. You and Jiraiya might be able to persuade her to return to the village and become the next Hokage, especially since she is one of your godparents, Naruto. As the village leader, this will most likely be one of my final missions for you. Do you agree?" "Of course, old man, me and the old pervert here will see to it," she said, smiling at the elderly man. "What time do we depart? If at all possible, please finish this as soon as possible. I would also advise you to bring your team along because my former student might approach her to have his body fixed. If you should encounter him, the mission's other requirement is to kill him on the spot. If at all possible, Naruto, try your hardest to eliminate them this time. However, keep in mind that your main goal is to return her to this village alive, even if you have to let him go in order to accomplish it." She gave him a nod of approval, understanding the significance of this mission. As Chojuru watched his two female teammates pack their gear and belongings for the mission, he could tell it was going to be dangerous, and he knew it was going to be one of those missions based on the expressions on their faces. "After hearing all the tales about the elderly pervert accompanying you, are you two certain you can manage this on your own? Are you certain he isn't trying to peek at you too?" he questioned them. The first person to reply was Naruto, who said, "Don't worry about us, Chojuru. If Mei was leaving, then we have cause for concern. Haku will be the ideal gentleman around us, and one of his closest possessions is a daughter. In addition, moving a group of 3 is simpler than moving a group of 4 or 5. We also need to move quickly because we know Lady Tsunade. Additionally, please return to Yuya and her friend to the village as soon as you can." He gave her a nod and prepared to return to the village with his sensei and leader, along with the newcomers, Orin, the village's living legend. Knowing that they would be busy for the time being, the two girls wasted no time in leaving the Water Country Embassy. Starting from the front of the gate, Jiraiya watched the activities of the Leaf, Sand, and a few Mist Nin who were working on rebuilding the areas of the village that had been damaged during the invasion. He had to acknowledge that the damage could have been much worse if it weren't for the Sound Spy who provided them with the information they needed. He turned his head to the right and grinned at the sight of his goddaughter's face and that of her close friend approaching the gate in autumnal combat gear, Naruto herself once again sporting the straw hat and battle cloak that had belonged to her former sensei Sasori. "So do you know where we are going to start looking for her?" asked Naruto as she approached him. "I have a contact in a nearby town that might be able to help us find her, so if you guys are ready we'll be leaving right now," he told them. Knowing that time was of the essence, the two of them nodded to him and left the gate together. To avoid detection and accomplish the mission of capturing the host of the Nine-Tailed Fox, which had been initially given to more senior members of the organization who were then given a different task to complete, 2 men wearing long black cloaks with red clouds on them and straw hats entered the Hidden Leaf Village North Gate, far from the activities in the village. In the Hidden Leaf and Hidden Sand villages, they were both wanted criminals by their respective villages. The Hidden Leaf's Jaden Uchiha was one of the 2 missing Uchiha who were wanted for murder in the massacre, but few knew that he was also one of the people who carried out the killing that day. Prior to the massacre, he had killed his best friend in order to advance in his bloodline. He was still unaware that Sasori had an apprentice who knew everything about him and what he had done, including the young puppet students that both Naruto and Shio had been trained by the day he fled, which had resulted in the deaths of these young boys and girls at his hands, and that 2 of the most powerful puppet masters wanted him dead for his crimes. The other one was from the Hidden Sand Village and had stolen Sasori's research on a variety of topics, including some of his prototype puppets. His name was Jin of the Black Sand. Since they haven't been able to find their target yet, they decided to stop by a small shop to eat and hear what people were saying about her. However, the meal was almost over and they had no useful information until a man approached a table, sat down with one of his friends, and started talking to him, saying, "You should have seen it, man. Master Jiraiya just left with 2 smoking hot young girls on some mission from the Hokage." "Wait, did one of these girls have a fox on the back of a long black battle cloak?" he asked his friend, who simply gave him a nod. "Master Jiraiya should not hear you say that because you most likely saw Naruko Uzumaki there. That was the woman who did all of the damage in the arena during the Chunin exams, in case you forgot." Jaden grinned at his companion, completed their meal, and hurried out of the village. In order to meet with his contact regarding the whereabouts of his lost teammate, who now needed to be retrieved, Jiraiya had left the 2 young girls alone in their hotel room. After putting her new armor suit back on and putting her hair back in a long ponytail behind her head, Naruko had already left the room's bathroom and was reading a book in silence while Haku reclined in her bed. They both heard a knock on the door at this point, so they played rock, paper, scissors to see who would answer. Naturally, Naruko lost, which should have led them to believe that her luck would only run out when something unfavorable happened. The look of rage on her face was more than enough to make Jaden activate the next level of his Sharingan to trap her in the ultimate genjutsu that only a superior Uchiha could do to her with it. Naruko opened the door expecting to see Jiraiya standing there with information from his contact, but instead he saw 2 of Akatsuki's newest members who were high on her shit list. The only thought that crossed his mind was, what the? He was smiling because he knew that she would be unable to escape this situation until he saw the almost devilish smile on her face. "So let me guess, demon, you think that you and those 2 can take me down in my world? You don't know me that well." Without warning, the world he was in was completely different from what it was supposed to be. He found himself standing on the side of a cliff overlooking another section in a beautiful ocean, with what appeared to be a memorial stone for a grave often in the distance on the lower cliff. This is when he heard a noise and turned to see 3 people standing there. Naruko, looking smug as possible, and this strange tall man with black glasses and a flowing kind of suit. "You have to fight, asshole, not me or them, it's her." He heard a dark, menacing laugh just behind him at this point, and when he turned to look, he saw a nearly mirror image of Naruko, with the main difference being that her eyes were almost entirely white with red slits, while the rest of them were as black as night. Her smile was like staring into the face of death. And then the hollow said, "You're not Itachi, Jaden. You appear to be strong, but not very strong. I've witnessed Itachi take control of a portion of the world and give me a serious workout. Now, explain to me why you were assigned to do this rather than him." The hollow appeared out of nowhere and then reappeared directly in front of him, bringing its enormous white sword down on his head, but Jaden was able to block it with one of his own, and he saw that it was clearly trying to hurt him badly, not kill him. He also looked over and saw that the other 3 had not moved at all, and seemed to be eating popcorn while watching the show that was him and the hollow. The other girl in the room had just thrown several ice needles at his head, and Hughes had been able to jump back into another section of the hallway to avoid them, only to see small ice like swords coming at him and slicing part of his cloak open. Jin was still trying to figure out what was going on with his partner as he and their target continued to stare into each other's eyes with an intensity he had never seen before. Jin couldn't understand why he was having so much trouble stopping this young girl. If only he knew that she had been trained for such battles. Haku put herself in a heavy defensive stance and charged her new enemy as he unlocked one of his puppets, which he named Hammer. Hammer then punched the walls, causing enormous holes of damage in them as it went on the attack trying to kill her. It was frustrating to say the least, and Jaden barely avoided another attack from the hollow inside Naruko's head. He had no idea how to stop this thing at all. He was completely unprepared for this type of battle eventuality, in which her inner hollow would be more powerful than his technique, and he fired off another fire just at the hollow, who then proceeded to block her with just one hand. The hollow turned to him and gave him a look of amusement before saying, "You seem to think I'm just another part of her, and let me give you a hint, I'm going to enjoy killing you even more." The hollow was smiling like a madman, or in this case a mad woman, and was easily overwhelming him. He had no idea something this powerful could exist inside someone's mind, and he was also wondering how the hell she had gotten control of this thing in the first place. "How in the blood-soaked partisan hell did you do that, you crazy bitch?" Jaden said, having had enough of this and wanting to leave because he couldn't imagine facing someone like this again until he had fully prepared for this type of fight. According to the hollow, "Fuck you, that's how." He said, "Okay, I've had enough of this shit, you crazy bitch, to hell with you," and disappeared. It was impossible for the hollow to resist saying, "Eat me, don't forget to write you." Bastard. After laughing uncontrollably at her pathetic sense of humor, Naruto said, "All right, I'll see you all later."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.